Hello and welcome guys. Make yourselves comfortable and enjoy. Coffee link to support this party going in the description. Well, let's continue now. This is Necromancer of the Shadows, chapter 426, Howl Dash. Crackle. A powerful wolf howl reverted in the surroundings, and an area of approximately 300 meters was engulfed in a purple lightning storm. Trees turned into dust, and the ground was split open. Crack. Crack. The sound of something cracking rang out amid the lightning storm, and Evan's lips curved upwards. "All right, that's enough." After a few seconds, Evan said, and Albelu stopped unleashing its destructive lightning. Evan looked at the golden platform that was still fine, because Albelu's earlier attack completely ignored it. He jumped down from its back and walked towards the golden platform. Just as he was 100 meters away from the platform, a formation lit up beneath his feet. Crack. Cracked. But in less than a second, cracks spread throughout the formation that lit up, and it shattered into motes of light. The people who were watching this from the stadium didn't show any reaction when they saw the formation shattering, and looked at it like it was the most natural thing in the world. All the S-rank hunters glanced at Natasha from the corner of their eyes, and noticed her expressions were quite calm. But when they looked into her red eyes and noticed how they were trembling occasionally, all of them knew that the old president of the Hunter Association was not as calm as she was showing. Instead of wasting my time figuring out what kind of formation is protecting the platform, destroying them is the best way to save time. Everyone heard Evan's voice and saw him nodding his head like a wise man. Crack. The S-rank hunters heard the sound of something cracking, but no one paid any attention to it, because it was not the first time they heard it. Natasha took a deep breath and loosened her tight grip on the chair. Evan watched with gleeful eyes as the golden glow around the platform disappeared, and a storage ring appeared before him. He picked up the ring and looked inside it. When he saw what was inside the ring, his eyes lit up and he put it away happily. The ring had some B+ rank cores, but most importantly he saw there were different kinds of herbs inside it. Normally those herbs would have been useless to him, but now that he had the body of the Goblin King, he was sure that it wouldn't be difficult for him to get something useful from these herbs. "I basically swept everything that I could find," Evan muttered to himself after putting away the ring. Even though most of the things that he collected from the golden platforms were normal, there was one thing that was comparable to the fruit he got in the beginning. Most of the golden platforms that he found were untouched, but 5 platforms were empty, which means other participants were able to collect rewards from there. "I think you should take a look at a acute plus or minus D plus or minus novel.c inverted question mark M. He looked towards the center of the small world, and a strange light gleamed inside his eyes. During the past 2 hours, while looking for golden platforms, he went towards the center of the small world earlier, and even saw the mountain where the flag was located. But since he wanted to collect everything before ending the round, he didn't bother to pick that flag. Now the only thing that this world can give me is that A rank artifact, and a greedy smile appeared on Evan's face, and he jumped at Albelu's back. He ordered Albelu to move towards the center of the small world, and it shot forward like a lightning bullet. "I still can't understand," Amanda said while sighing out loud. "Just what kind of broken skill is this? Why is this wolf not disappearing even though it is more than 2 hours? Everyone was silent after hearing her because they were thinking the same. Maybe he is spending some of his mana from time to time to keep the skill activated all this time, Cody said with a doubtful look on his face. "I don't think it is important as to why this wolf is not disappearing. The more important thing is, what will happen in the team rounds if he summons this wolf again," Morgana said with a strange look on her face. The mouths of all the people present trembled uncontrollably when they heard Morgana. Just looking at the black wolf that was running at lightning speed, they were sure that if Evan summoned it during the team rounds, those B+ rank students would definitely break into tears. Albelu was a lightning wolf, one of the fastest monsters, so it was not difficult for Evan to surpass other participants who were ahead of him, because he was focused on collecting rewards from the golden platforms. He was not affected by the gravity of the small world too much because he was riding on Albelu's back. Just after 20 minutes, he was able to see the giant mountain where Natasha placed the flag. When Evan was just 200 kilometers away from the mountain, he signaled Albelu to stop. "From what I saw earlier, there are 5 A-rank monsters in this small world, and since I am a good person, I will gladly kill them," so that other participants will stay safe, Evan said inwardly, and looked in a specific direction. He did not even say anything when Albellu charged in that direction with lightning speed. Evan looked at the 7 storage rings on his fingers, and a smile appeared on his face. All of those 7 storage rings were filled with monster corpses that he collected in the past hours. Albellu could kill all the monsters with a single attack, so he was able to collect many bodies. My Monarch Core will be able to advance a little with the help of these bodies, Evan thought to himself. After around 1 minute, Evan felt the aura of the monster he was looking for. His eyes flashed and he used Hawk's Eye skill. His vision expanded, and around 10 kilometers away, he saw a green horse that was sleeping peacefully. Crackle! The purple lightning around Albellu crackled with even more intensity. Whoosh! Albellu suddenly disappeared from its place, and the sleeping A-rank horse felt all hairs on its body stand up. The horse quickly opened its eyes and tried to move away. But before it could stand up, a sharp claw covered in lightning appeared before its face, and its head was severed from its body. Chapter 427. In just 1 hour, Evan killed 4 of the 5 A-rank monsters present in the small world. After killing 4 monsters, he got only 1 A-rank core, but he consoled himself by thinking that he could still absorb the bodies of those A-rank monsters, using energy absorption skill. Currently, Evan was searching around the center area of the small world, looking for the last A-rank monster. He already knew the location of the A+ rank monster present in the small world, and before dealing with it, he wanted to kill the last A-rank monster. Did you find it? Evan asked Albellu, who was moving towards the center of the small world. Waves of lightning were coming out from its body and were spreading all over the surroundings. It was Albellu's lightning detection skill. This skill allows it to search for targets in an area of 20 kilometers around it, as long as the target's rank is not higher than it. Howl dash. Albellu howled in a low voice and nodded its head when it heard Evan. Lightning crackled around it, and it used lightning movement skill to move forward. Evan looked at Albellu carefully and closed his eyes for a moment. I don't know if it will work or not, but if it works. Evan opened his eyes and took a deep breath. Howl dash. Albellu's low howl brought Evan out of his thoughts, and he shook his head for the time being. Let's think about it after leaving this small world, Evan thought to himself and looked in front of him. Around 300 meters away from him, he saw a 5 meters tall dark blue monster, which was similar to a rhinoceros. A beautiful 30 centimeters long, light blue horn was coming out from the upper surface of its snout. The deep orange eyes of the rhinoceros were fixed on Albellu, and it was looking at it with caution-filled eyes. Why did you stop, Albellu? Evan asked when Albellu stopped 300 meters away from the rhinoceros. Albellu gestured Evan to look upward, and when Evan looked upward, he couldn't help but show a nostalgic smile. It's been quite some time since I last saw this monster, Evan said to himself when he saw the A+ rank monster of the small world standing at the top of the cliff which was behind the rhinoceros. The A+ rank monster had dark black skin and deep black eyes. It was 10 meters tall, and was standing on its 2 legs just like humans. When Evan looked into its deep black eyes, he saw only one thing in them. Hunger. A hunger that wanted to devour everything. It's been a while, Black Ogre. The A+ rank monster that was standing at the top of the cliff was a black ogre, and just by feeling its aura, Evan could tell that it was not an easy opponent. Of course, if he decided to go all out, he could easily kill it even without the help of his shadow undeads. But Evan wasn't foolish enough to go all out, when he knew soon he would have to face some powerful enemies. What do you think, Albellu? Can you kill that black ogre? Evan asked while stroking the head of the lightning wolf. If it was a normal monster, Evan was sure that Albellu could defeat it easily, because it doesn't need to worry about getting injured during the fight. But the black ogre is a completely different matter. Just like Albellu, the black ogre was also not afraid of getting injured, because of its regeneration skill that can allow it to regrow even its lost limbs. Even though Albellu became a shadow undead, its intelligence didn't dismiss one bit, so it easily understood Evan's question. Surprisingly, its answer was something that Evan didn't expect. You don't know, huh? Evan muttered when he heard Albellu's answer. But instead of feeling upset, he nodded his head calmly and jumped down from Albellu's back. If you don't know, then you just have to fight against it to get your answer, right? Evan said and took out his Wind Fury sword. I will take care of the small rhinoceros. You take care of the big black ogre, Evan said, while activating wind manipulation. Albelu nodded its head, and the lightning around it intensified. Roar! The black ogre that was standing on top of the hill let out a powerful roar when it felt Evan and Albelu's fighting spirit. Boom! The top of the mountain where the black ogre was standing exploded as it pressed its feet on it and shot its body towards them. Evan completely ignored the incoming black ogre and charged towards the rhinoceros using wind manipulation to increase his speed. A cold light flashed in the black ogre's eyes when it saw Evan ignoring it. It controlled its body in mid-air and tried to move towards him. Crackle! But before it could move toward Evan, tens of lightning arcs encircled it, and Albelu appeared in front of it. Lightning covered its front claws, and it slashed at the black ogre. Roar! The black ogre roared out loud and used its giant fist to block Albelu's lightning claw. Claw and fist clashed in mid-air. Boom! A thunderous explosion happened. The cliff from which the black ogre jumped down crumbled, and the ground shattered because of the shock waves. Albelu was pushed back while the black ogre easily landed on the ground after the clash, indicating that it was physically more powerful than Albelu. The flames in Albelu's eyes burned even more brightly, and with lightning speed, it closed the distance between itself and the ogre once again. The black ogre trumped its foot on the ground and took a step forward while clenching its fist. The ground beneath its feet shattered, and it punched toward Albelu, who appeared in front of it in an instant. The black ogre's fist successfully connected with Albelu's head, but it was taken aback when Albelu's body exploded into lightning particles. Suddenly the ogre felt a sharp aura coming from behind it, and before it could turn around, black blood gushed out, and a deep wound appeared on its nape. Roar! The black ogre roared out in pain and swung its hand backwards, wanting to hit Albelu. But using its high agility, Albelu easily dodged its hand and backed away. Evan, who was fighting against the rhino, looked at the ogre when it roared out in pain. Seeing the deep wound on its nape, Evan's eyes flashed, but the next second the thing he was worried about happened. A black light glowed around the deep wound of the ogre, and it started to heal at lightning speed. Chapter 428. Damn, this madman. Cody could not help but mutter under his breath as he watched the ongoing fight. Even though that black wolf is fast and quite powerful, there is no way it would be able to defeat that black ogre. When both of them are A+ rank monsters, Amanda said while shaking her head. Indeed, instead of fighting, he should have used the high agility of that wolf to ignore the black ogre and head straight for the cliff where the green flag is located. Morgana also nodded her head after hearing Amanda and Cody. Roar! Suddenly the black ogre roared out loud. Just as it roared out, spiritual waves came out of its mouth along with sonic waves, and Albelu, who was about to slash at its back, paused for a moment when it was hit by spiritual waves. The eyes of the ogre burned furiously as it turned around with lightning speed and punched Albelu's head using its giant fist. Boom! A loud booming sound reverted in the surroundings, and Albelu was sent flying backwards like a broken kite. Its body collided against many trees, snapping them in the process. Evan, who was fighting against the rhinoceros while limiting his power, couldn't help but frown when he saw what happened. Through his connection with Albelu, he could feel that its body was badly damaged because of the earlier punch. As I thought, it will be difficult for Albelu to beat it, Evan sighed to himself. It wasn't that Albelu was weak, it was just that the black ogre's abilities countered Albelu perfectly. The high defense and regeneration almost made it impossible for Albelu to inflict damage on it. Evan used his mana to heal Albelu, so that its power wouldn't be reduced. Crackle! Just as Evan healed Albelu, lightning crackled in the area, and it shot towards the black ogre once again. Suddenly Evan felt all hair on his body stand up, and without thinking about anything he immediately jumped sideways. Just as he jumped sideways, a deep blue energy beam passed from the place he was standing. The power of the energy beam was so high that the ground was split open, just because of its sheer force. A glint of surprise shone in Evan's eyes when he felt the power of the beam, and he finally looked at the rhinoceros with a serious look on his face. The rhinoceros growled when Evan dodged its attack, and it charged towards him. A cold light flashed in Evan's eyes as he saw how Albelu was being pushed back by the black ogre. He looked at the charging rhinoceros, and instead of dodging he also shot towards it using his superior agility. The wind fury sword that was in his hands disappeared, and an azure glow appeared around his fist. People were stunned when they saw how Evan was planning to clash head-on against the giant rhinoceros. The 5 meters tall rhinoceros and not even 2 meters tall Evan closed the distance between them in an instant. The giant head and the small fist of Evan, covered in azure glow, collided against each other, and boom! A thunderous explosion resounded, the ground cracked, and the trees were uprooted because of the powerful shockwaves. Growl! The eyes of the people who were watching from the stadium opened wide when they heard a painful growl of the rhinoceros. How is this possible? A man watching from the stadium muttered in a shocked voice. When he saw Evan did not even flinch after clashing against the rhinoceros. Meanwhile, the rhinoceros slid 10 meters backwards. But what shocked them to the core was that for some reason the rhino's eyes were bleeding, as if it was crying tears of blood. I thought I would be able to destroy its eyes using the sonic waves of sonic resonance skill. But looks like its defense is a lot higher than I thought, Evan said inwardly, when he saw the eyes of the rhino didn't explode and just received minor damage. But Evan didn't waste too much time thinking about it and charged towards the rhino once again, while it was still trying to recover. His eyes flashed with green light as tens of wind spears formed around the rhino and shot towards it. Even though the wind spears were quite sharp, they were not able to pierce the tough skin of the rhino. Although the wind spears were not able to harm it, they successfully distracted it. Evan arrived before the rhino, and before it could do anything, Evan once again used sonic resonance. Growl dash. This time the painful growl of the rhino was louder than before. Blood gushed out uncontrollably as both eyes of the rhino exploded. Evan showed a tired expression on his face after the eyes of the rhino exploded, and he quickly backed away. After backing away, he took out a mana potion and drank it. Damn, I should practice some more if I want to fool people in future, Evan thought to himself when he drank the potion, even though he had more than 90% of his mana remaining. Roar! Just as Evan backed away, he heard the angry roar of the black ogre. He quickly turned around and saw the black ogre catch the front claws of Albellu with its giant hands. The faces of some people present in the audience turned pale as they saw the black ogre open its mouth and bite off a large portion of Albellu's face. Evan could not help but frown when he saw this, even though he knew Albellu did not feel pain, and he could use mana to heal it. He still felt angry after seeing how the black ogre was eating his companion. Moreover, if everything goes like this, Albellu wouldn't be able to beat it. Evan thought and finally made up his mind. He used his mana to heal Albellu. The black ogre was taken aback when Albellu instantly recovered, and the large chunk that it bit off turned into black smoke. Crackle! Albellu unleashed its lightning at the face of the black ogre, who roared out in pain and let go of Albellu's front claws. The face of the black ogre was burnt, but a black light flashed, and it started to heal again. I hope it will work, Evan said, and took out the red-colored fruit that he got from the first golden platform. Albellu, he shouted and tossed the fruit towards it. Evan's heart started to beat faster and faster as he saw Albellu jump towards the fruit and swallow it. Please work. Evan started to pray, hoping his gamble would pay off, because he knew if it failed, he would definitely start crying for losing such a good fruit. Just as Evan was praying, the lightning that was cracking around Albellu disappeared, and some notifications flashed before his eyes. Chapter 429. Blood Lightning Pomegranate. The blood lightning pomegranate is a rare plant that flourishes exclusively in areas where the volatile energies of lightning and the essence of blood converge. After consuming this fruit, there is a chance that the consumer will receive a unique lightning skill, or one of his skills that possess the essence of lightning will mutate. The fruit will not work if the consumer doesn't have at least 5 skills related to lightning element. When Evan saw the details of the blood lightning pomegranate for the first time, he immediately thought about Albellu. But the problem was that Albellu was not an original lightning wolf. It was the shadow undead of the lightning wolf that he created, so he wasn't sure if this fruit would work on it. After thinking about everything, Evan decided to do some tests before he gave the blood lightning pomegranate to Albellu. In Aurora World, there are many fruits that work like potions. For example, fruits like strength-enhancing fruit can increase the strength of the consumer by a small margin. Agility-enhancing fruit can increase the agility of the consumer by a small margin. Although these types of fruits are quite expensive, they are not rare, but Evan never bothered himself with them because the boost that they give to consumers is very small. But now Evan was thinking about buying some of these fruits and test if they would work on his shadow undeads. If Albelu eats a strength-enhancing fruit and it works on it, then it will mean the lightning pomegranate will also work on it. But after seeing how Albelu was at a complete disadvantage against the Black Ogre, he decided to use it. I hope it will work, or I will have no choice but to run away with Albelu, since I don't want to reveal my full strength. Here Evan thought, and threw the fruit towards Albelu, who swallowed it. Just as Albelu swallowed the fruit, the purple lightning that was crackling around it disappeared, and some notifications flashed before Evan's eyes. Evan was overjoyed when he felt the fruit was working. But even before he could read the notifications, something that he didn't expect happened. He felt a slightly burning sensation, and the rune of evolution which was engraved on his chest lit up. Don't tell me. Evan thought about something and quickly looked at the notifications that he received. Your shadow undead Albelu consumed blood lightning fruit. Your shadow undead Albelu received the unique skill Crimson Veil. These two were the notifications that he got after Albelu swallowed the fruit. But then a few more notifications flashed before his eyes. Rune of Evolution activated. The effect of Blood Lightning Pomegranate evolved because of the Rune of Evolution. Your shadow Undead Albelu is evolving. Your shadow Undead Albelu evolved into Blood Lightning Wolf. Evan's eyes were wide open as he read the notifications. This underscore. Crackle. Evan was still shocked when suddenly a pillar of blood red lightning shot towards the sky. Howl. A wolf howl reverted in the surroundings, and a bloodthirsty aura spread in tens of kilometers of area, making the bodies of weaker monsters shudder. The hunger-filled eyes of the Black Ogre widened, and it took a step back when the bloodthirsty aura of Albelu pressed down on it. The rhino, who was still growling in pain because of losing its eyes, stopped at the same place, and its body started to shake because of fear. Holy Mother! Evan looked with his eyes wide open as the pillar of blood red lightning slowly started to disappear, and a 10 meters tall wolf with deep red stripes all over its black body came out of it. Albelu was still an A+ rank monster, but the aura around it was way more powerful than before. Crackle! Blood red lightning crackled around its body, and its bloodthirsty gaze was locked on Black Ogre. Don't damage its body too much. Evan was thinking about turning the Black Ogre into Shadow Undead, so he said to Albelu using Shadow Senses, when he saw how it was looking at Black Ogre. But when he used Shadow Senses to connect with Albelu, he felt an incredible amount of bloodlust, so he was not sure if Albelu would listen to his command. Fortunately, Evan's worries did not come true, because even though Albelu's mind was filled with bloodlust, it still nodded its head after hearing Evan. Roar! Feeling Albelu's cold gaze, the Black Ogre roared out loud to shake away the fear it was feeling, and took a step forward. Crackle! Just as the Black Ogre took a step forward, an arc of blood red lightning came towards it, and before it could dodge it, the lightning arc struck it on its right shoulder. Roar! The eyes of the ogre opened wide, and a painful roar escaped from its beastly mouth. Black blood gushed out like a fountain, and the right shoulder of the ogre was separated from its body. Evan's eyes trembled when he saw the power of that lightning arc. He also felt a lethal threat from that blood lightning, which meant even an S-rank hunter would not be able to come out unscathed after taking a hit from that lightning arc. It's good Black Ogres can regenerate their body parts, Evan thought to himself, when he noticed the shoulder of the ogre started to regenerate. Even though it was not a big deal, he was still afraid that his shadow resurrection would fail because of it. Suddenly Albelu took a step forward and turned into a streak of red lightning. Evan just saw a blurred streak move towards the Black Ogre, before returning back to the place where Albelu was standing. At first, Evan was confused about what just happened, but when he looked at the Black Ogre again, he could not help but suck a breath of cold air. The Black Ogre was still standing in the same place, but a small baseball-sized hole appeared in his chest where its heart used to be. Black blood was coming out from the small hole uncontrollably, and the eyes of the ogre were wide open, like it could not believe what just happened. Thud dash. The Black Ogre dropped to its knees as blood red lightning that was moving around the hole in its chest started to cover the rest of its body. Slowly the life aura of the Black Ogre started to disappear, and in less than 3 seconds spark of life disappeared from its eyes. Evan watched everything with a blank look on his face. There was only one thought in his mind. I hope Shadow Resurrection will not fail because it is still missing an arm. Chapter 430. What kind of regeneration is this? Amanda couldn't help but say in amazement when she saw Albelu's recovery speed. It is even better than Black Ogre when it comes to recovering from the injuries. Cody nodded his head when Albelu's face, which was bit off by Ogre, instantly recovered. Looks like my guess was wrong. I was thinking that this monster is a lightning wolf, but looking at its recovery speed, now I am sure that is a different monster, Morgana said with a thoughtful look on her face. It doesn't matter what kind of monster it is. From the fight till now, it is clear that it wouldn't be able to beat that Black Ogre, John said while shaking his head when he heard others. Albelu suddenly they heard Evan's voice and saw him taking out the blood-red fruit that he got from the golden platform. Don't tell me, Natasha muttered in a low voice, and her heart skipped a beat. She was still hoping that she might be able to get back that fruit from Evan in the future, but seeing him taking it out, she was having a bad feeling. And that bad feeling instantly came true when she saw him throwing it towards his summon wolf. Wasn't this the fruit he got from the first golden platform? John said while raising an eyebrow. All of them were confused as to why Evan fed the fruit to his summon wolf, but all of them soon shut their mouth, and their eyes opened wide. Suddenly Albelu became 10 meters tall, and sinister-looking blood-red lightning arcs started to come out of its body. Even though they couldn't feel its aura through the screen, all of them could tell that its power increased exceptionally. What the fuck was that fruit? Cody can't help but curse out loud after seeing Albelu's changes. All of them looked at Natasha and saw she was looking at the screen with a blank look on her face. Natasha didn't care that all the S-rank hunters were looking at her, because currently she was thinking about what just happened. She knew the details of Blood Lightning Pomegranate perfectly. After all, she was the one who placed it inside. What the hell is going on here? Natasha tried to remember the details of the fruit once again, but still couldn't understand the change that Albelu went through. Seeing Natasha's blank look, other S-rank hunters also understood that she is also confused just like them. After putting away Black Ogre's body, Evan looked at Albelu. Why do I feel like it became bloodthirsty after evolving into a blood lightning wolf? Evan thought to himself because he could feel a bloodthirsty aura coming out of Albelu's body from time to time. But Evan knew that this bloodlust was not directed towards him, so he didn't care too much about it. As long as his shadow undeads obeyed his command, he was fine with their behavior. Kill it as well, Evan said after a moment while pointing towards the rhino. Howl! Albelu howled, and like a bloodthirsty demon, instantly appeared before the rhino that was 100 meters away from it. Its claw crackled with blood lightning, and like a hot knife passing through the butter, with a single slash, it beheaded the rhino. When Evan saw how easily Albelu beheaded Rhino, his mouth trembled uncontrollably. Even though he didn't use his full power while fighting against the rhino, Evan still knew that the defense of the rhino was no joke. I have a feeling that now Albelu might even be able to face someone who just advanced to S rank, Evan thought to himself, and smiled wryly. He never thought that just by consuming one fruit Albelu's power would increase so much. He walked towards the rhino's body and put it away. Albelu's body was still covered in blood lightning, but Evan jumped on its back without hesitation. The blood lightning coming out of Albelu's body touched him, but it didn't harm him. Let's go. Evan patted Albelu's back and said it to move towards the highest cliff, where the green flag was located. Blood lightning crackled around it, and using lightning movement skill, Albelu dashed towards the highest cliff of the small world, where the green flag was located. After evolving into a blood lightning wolf, Albelu's agility also received a great boost. The cliff was 50 kilometers away from Evan, but in less than 2 minutes he reached there. During these 2 minutes, he used the second effect of his growth link skill to see the changes in Albelu's skills. And after seeing the changes in its skills, Evan was sure that Albelu was at least 2 times more powerful than before. Crimson Veil is a powerful unique skill, but this second skill, other than the Crimson Veil, Albelu received another unique skill, and Evan was truly perplexed after seeing its details. Man, I also want to get skills without doing anything, Evan thought to himself, and stopped looking at Albelu's skills, because of feeling envious. The gravity in the central area of the small world was at least 15 times more powerful than the outside world. Although Evan was riding Albelu's back, he still felt a little uncomfortable because he was not used to such a high gravity. The mountain where the flag was placed was 4,000 meters high. Seeing the high mountain, Evan could not help but scratch the back of his head. It will take me some time to climb this mountain, since flying is forbidden inside this small world, Evan muttered to himself. Howl dash. Just when Evan was thinking of using ice chains to climb up, Albelu howled in a low voice and took a few steps backwards. Evan did not ask what it was doing and just looked at it curiously. Blood lightning started to spin around Albelu's legs, and it charged forward like a bullet. Evan grabbed Albelu's back tightly, and was amazed when he saw how easily it was climbing the mountain by using the small cracks that were present in it. Although the mountain was 4,000 meters high, he reached at top of it in just a few seconds. At the top of the mountain, he saw a green flag. TSK TSK TSK. This round was even simpler than snatching a candy from a child, Evan said out loud while shaking his head. The people who were watching him couldn't help but curse out loud, asking him to say the same thing without summoning his demonic wolf. Evan walked towards the green flag, but before ending the round, he looked at the small earring which was placed beside it, and picked it up. Chapter 431. Evan picked up the purple-colored earring placed beside the green flag, and looked at its details. Elemental Bind Earring, a rank. The wearer of this earring can channel their mana into it, causing the enemy's elemental powers to be restrained. For example, if the enemy can control fire, the earring absorbs and nullifies their fire abilities to some extent, while granting the wearer a temporary boost in fire resistance. The effect of the earring lasts for 40 minutes after activating, and needs 24 hours of cooldown time before it can be used again. Good earring, Evan said in a delighted voice after reading the details of the earring, and wore it in his left ear, after removing the whispering earring. After wearing the earring, Evan looked at the green flag which was swaying because of the wind. Nothing happened during this round, so chances of something happening during the next round are pretty high, Evan said inwardly while looking at the flag. He looked at Albelu and summoned it back into his shadow storage. I was a little nervous because I wasn't sure what Dark Guild would do during the tournament, but now that Albelu evolved into Blood Wolf, Evan thought about some of his skills that he could use at the same time, and felt he might even able to defeat Natasha, if he uses all of them perfectly. Well, looks like it will be fun. Evan walked towards the green flag and picked it up without hesitation. After picking up the green flag, he waited for some time. Around 2 minutes later, Evan and all the participants present in the small world felt a strange energy enveloping their bodies. Evan was calm since he knew what was happening, but some of the participants who were completely unaware of anything panicked. What is going on? Muck, who was fighting against 2B+ rank monsters, stopped when he felt strange energy covering his body. Valerie, who was moving towards the center, also stopped and frowned when she felt strange energy enveloping her body, but it did not take her long to realize what was happening. When her body started to disappear, someone already reached the center and took the flag, Valerie said in a baffled voice, because she was still quite far away from the center. It wasn't easy to move inside the small world because of the monsters and the difference in gravity. Who is this monster who reached the center so quickly? Valerie muttered before her body disappeared from the small world. Other participants also realized someone reached the center and took the green flag when their bodies started to disappear. That wolf is almost as powerful as a newly advanced S-rank hunter, Cody said with a shocked look on his face after seeing how easily Albelu killed the black ogre. Just what kind of divine fruit was that? Morgana asked while looking at Natasha. Don't tell me you placed it inside without checking its details. A fruit that can increase the power of a summoned monster like this is even more precious than A+ rank artifacts, and is almost comparable to an S rank artifact. So they were truly baffled by the fact that Natasha put that fruit inside. How am I supposed to know what the hell is going on? Although that fruit was amazing, this kind of effect is completely out of this world, Natasha cried inwardly, while trying to remain calm outside. Evan looked at the horizon of the small world while holding the green flag as his body also started to disappear. Woha! As Evan appeared outside of the small world, he heard the loud sound of cheering. He looked around him and saw he was standing some distance away from the portal. Other participants who went inside the small world were also standing some distance away from him. Demonic Summoner. Demonic Summoner. Evan's mouth trembled uncontrollably when he heard many people shouting Demonic Summoner, because he already knew whom they were calling Demonic Summoner. I know Albelu looks like a real bloodthirsty demon after evolving into a blood lightning wolf, but calling me a Demonic Summoner. Evan didn't know whether to laugh or cry when he saw a fanatic look on the faces of some people. But soon Evan stopped thinking about it because he felt many eyes locked on him. He looked around and saw all the participants were looking at him. Rather than him, they were looking at the flag in his hand. Sophie, Mark and other members of Clear Sky Academy looked at each other and couldn't help but shake their heads. They already expected that Evan would be quite powerful, since he reached B+ rank now, so they were not surprised when they saw him holding the flag. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a big round of applause for the winner of the first round. The demonic summoner Evan of the Astrate Academy. The nameless host who was hovering above the stadium finally spoke when the last participant was teleported out from the small world. When Evan heard what the nameless host called him, he just looked at him with dead eyes. All the participants who were unaware of Albelu looked at Evan with weird eyes, wondering what he did inside the small world to get such a strange nickname. Soon few more participants who exited the small world using the crystal also joined the participants who just come out. All the participants walked towards their teammates and stood with them. Valerie and others were looking at Evan with curious eyes, because they wanted to know why people were calling him a demonic summoner. Suddenly Evan felt a sharp glare from his right direction. When he looked there, he saw a male looking at him. Evan did not recognize the male immediately, but after a moment remembered him as the person whom he nearly killed in order to save the Goblin King. Evan did not know what to say to him, so he just nodded his head and looked away. But Felix felt a chill running down his spine when Evan nodded at him. After the healer treated him and he woke up, Felix watched the recording of what happened after he passed out, and in that recording, he saw how Evan nodded at the Goblin King before killing it. He is not thinking about killing me, right? Felix swallowed his saliva and stopped looking at Evan. I know most of you are tired and need a short break, but before you go back let me tell you about the second round, the nameless host said while looking at the participants. Since this round will be a team round, you will be able to discuss about it during the break. For the second row _ Wait a minute. Before the nameless host could tell them about the second round, a male participant stopped him. All the people present there looked at the person who had just spoken and saw he was a participant from the Black Raven Academy. Yes. The nameless host looked at him with a confused face. Where is our fifth teammate Dennis? He asked because one of their teammate was missing. Dennis. The nameless host muttered and remembered the person who was beaten by Noah. He looked towards the lounge of the healer and was confused as to why he did not come out. Just as he was about to call out for him, his words struck inside his mouth when suddenly a giant formation that was covering the entire field of the stadium lit up. Chapter 432. Dennis, the person who helped Noah create the formation, was standing inside a room. The wounds on his shoulders that were created by Noah were fully healed, and he was in perfect condition. A man wearing the uniform of a healer was sitting in front of him, but the eyes of the healer were lifeless, and his body was completely pale, like someone drained all blood from his body. Dennis was paying attention to the small screen that was showing what was happening outside. When he saw all the participants coming out of the small world, his lips curled upwards. He took out a small round plate from his storage ring and started to infuse his mana into it. Just as he started to infuse his mana, the formation which was engraved underground and was covering the entire field of the stadium activated. Dennis gritted his teeth when the plate started to absorb his mana at rapid speed. He took out some high-grade mana potions and started to drink them while continuing to pour his mana into the round plate. After around 1 minute, the plate stopped absorbing Dennis's mana, and he was feeling lightheaded because of losing almost all of his mana. He tried his best not to pass out and looked at the small screen, which was showing what was happening inside the field of the stadium. Suddenly a giant formation that was covering the entire field lit up after Dennis stopped pouring his mana. Just as the formation lit up, 10 terrifying aura covered the entire stadium. These 10 were the aura of Nathan and others, who immediately felt something was wrong when the formation lit up. Dennis watched with a smile on his face as all the participants who were standing inside the field were engulfed by a silver light that came out from the formation and instantly disappeared from the stadium. Just as all the participants disappeared, Dennis used all of his strength and crushed the round plate he was holding in his hands. The small round plate shattered like glass, and Dennis collapsed on the ground, since he wasn't able to stay conscious anymore after losing all of his mana. Now no one will be able to find where they are. Dennis muttered to himself before he closed his eyes. A acute plus or minus D plus or minus S inverted question mark vel dot C inverted question mark. And just as Dennis shattered the round plate, the portal of the small world which was hovering above the stage released some weak energy ripples that traveled underground. When the formation came into contact with energy ripples sent by the portal, the formation started to disappear, and in less than 5 seconds, the giant formation that was covering the entire field of the stadium disappeared like it was never there in the first place. Sebastian was first to move when the formation appeared inside the field, and immediately moved towards the place where Valerie was standing. But before he could reach her, all the participants disappeared from the field along with the formation. His aura went completely out of control, and most of the people who were present in the stadium coughed out blood because they were just normal people. Calm down, Sebastian. Nathan covered the audience with his aura and said in a deep voice. Meanwhile, Natasha, Morgana, Cody, and other S-rank hunters quickly appeared in the stadium field and tried to search for the formation. Natasha, can you track the energy waves of that formation? That was definitely a teleportation formation, and you are the only one who can track it using your space element, Amanda said while looking at Natasha. No one tried to waste time by asking questions like who created that formation, or what was their purpose, because all of them were aware that soon the energy waves of the teleportation formation would disappear, and they would not be able to find where the students were teleported if they waste their time. Nathan and Sebastian also landed beside them and looked at Natasha. Natasha also didn't waste time as her eyes shined with silver light. Space sense, Natasha muttered in a low voice, and soon she was able to feel energy waves left behind by the formation. How is this possible? But her eyes widened in shock when she felt the energy waves left behind by the formation. When other S-rankers saw the shocked look on Natasha's face, a bad feeling engulfed their heart. What is wrong, Natasha? Nathan asked with a deep frown on his face. The sliver glow in Natasha's eyes disappeared, and she shook her head while looking at other S-rank hunters. I can't track the energy waves left behind by that formation. What? Sebastian shouted out loud. What do you mean you can't track it? Other people also looked at Natasha with stunned expressions, because they knew it is not hard to track energy waves of teleportation formation if you have space element. I know what you are thinking, but the teleportation formation that was used here was completely different. Natasha took a deep breath and said in a shocked-filled voice. What do you by this formation was different? Morgana asked in a worried voice. I can't track the energy waves left behind by this formation because the destination where students are teleported is very far away. If the destination of the formation was within 10,000 kilometers of me, I could have tracked them, but from the energy waves, I can tell that they are teleported at least 100,000 kilometers away from here. Impossible, Sebastian shouted when he heard Natasha. Do you think we are fools? We all know that even with the highest grade of teleportation formation that we can currently make, we cannot travel more than 5,000 kilometers away. And you are saying the earlier formation teleported the students more than 100,000 kilometers away. Other S-rankers were also looking at Natasha with shocked faces, not wanting to believe what she just said. While the S-rank hunters were trying to find what just happened, Valerie and others found themselves standing in the middle of the wilderness after they were teleported away. They did not even get the chance to properly think about their situation when all of them felt many powerful aura coming towards them. Valerie and others tensed up when they felt so many powerful auras. Hey Eva_Valerie looked to her right side where Evan was standing before they were teleported away to ask what was happening. But she stopped midway when she saw Evan was not standing there. She looked around her to see if she could find him, but among the group, she was not able to find him. Chapter 433. There were a total of 23 students who found themselves standing in the middle of the wilderness, including Valerie. Among 25 students who went inside the small world, only Evan and Dennis were not present there. The bodies of most of the students who were teleported away tensed up when they felt some people coming towards them at rapid speed, and among these people, they could feel auras of 4A rank hunters. All the students raised their guard to the maximum level and stood with their teammates. Thank God you all are here at last. I was getting bored waiting for you all. Suddenly they heard the voice of a man and saw a 135 centimeters tall man standing some distance away from them. Valerie and others looked at the man warily because even though the man was looking like a dwarf, they could feel he was an A-rank hunter. Though your legs are short, you run very fast, shorty. Soon they heard another male voice and saw 9 more people coming towards them. Among these 9, 3 were A-rank hunters, and 6 were B+ rank. Shut your mouth, Jamison, or I will cut off that disgusting tang of yours, Ryan, the short man said. The 4 A-rank hunters were the same people who attacked Naflium City during the monster tide. All right, stop both of you, Mason, who had golden hair, said in a stern voice. You two can fight after finishing everything here. Or do you want me to contact Lord Castle? Both Ryan and Jamison snorted after hearing Mason, but they did not say anything. So what should we do with them? Audrey, the last A-rank hunter who looks to be in her late 60s, asked in a relaxed voice. We just have to bring them to base, and our work will be done, Mason said while looking at students. Well, it will be quite easy, since we just have to break their spirit, and they will follow us obediently, Ryan said, and looked at students with a crazed smile on his balloon-like round face. Valerie and others were getting a bad feeling when they saw Ryan's smile. Noah, what are you doing? Suddenly they heard the shocked voice of Ian, who was a member of the Arcanum Academy team, and saw Noah walking towards Ryan and others with indifferent expression on his face. Soon Valerie and others saw around 7 more students leave the group and walk towards Ryan and others. Helia Sophie and other members of Clear Sky Academy were also stunned when they saw Helia was also among the people who left the group. Don't tell me all of them are, Jackson muttered in a low voice, and soon his face turned pale when he saw how the 8 people who just left the group were now standing behind Ryan's group without saying anything. Noah, are both of you? Ian asked with a stunned expression on his face, when 2 of his teammates were now standing with the people who clearly had no good intentions. Looks like we are in big trouble, Gloria said in a low voice, and looked at other people warily, thinking there might be someone else who is also working with Ryan and his group. Valerie looked around and saw now only 15 students were left on their side, and among 15 only 6 were B+ rank, while 9 were B rank. There were 4 students of Clear Sky Academy, and only Sophie was B+ rank among them. Among the team of Astart Academy, only Valerie and Jackson were B+ rank. In the team of Arcanum Academy, there were 3 students, and only Ian was a B+ rank since Noah left. There were 3 students of Central Academy, and 2 of them were B+ rank. There was only 1 student of Black Raven Academy who was standing with Valerie and others, and he was B rank. See, now that their spirit is very low after seeing their own teammates join us, it would not be difficult to bring them with us, Ryan said with a crooked smile on his face, when he saw the stunned expressions of the students. Who are you people? Mark asked with a frown on his face, while holding his shield tightly. Who are we? Ryan blinked a few times when he heard Mark before he burst into laughter. Ha ha ha, sorry, I completely forgot to introduce ourselves. You live in Naflium City, right? Ryan asked while looking at Mark, but he did not wait for his answer and continued to speak. Since you live in Naflium City, I will give you a very brief but detailed introduction of myself. Do you remember the attack on Naflium City a while back? The expression of Sophie and others changed when they heard Ryan. Well, I was the one who destroyed the biggest part of the city, and killed the most people during that attack, Ryan said with a smile on his face. Oi shorty, don't take my achievement, Jamison shouted from behind when he heard Ryan. I was the one who destroyed the biggest part of the city. Yes, whatever, Ryan said while waving his hand and looked back at Mark, whose body was shaking because of anger. Do I need to say anything else in our introduction? Dogs of the Dark Guild, Valerie muttered in a cold voice, because it was not hard to guess their identity after hearing Ryan. The faces of other people also turned ugly when they realized the people in front of them were from the Dark Guild. Now that you know who we are, just come with us without making a fuzz or don't blah _ Shut up you motherf*. David did not let Ryan finish what he was saying before he shouted in an anger-filled voice. A sharp earth spear formed in his hand, and he shot it towards Ryan. Idiot, Ryan said in a cold voice and lifted his hand to stop the earth spear. But before he could lift his hand, Caleb's eyes shined for a moment, Ryan lost focus for a split second when Caleb used his skill, but because of the difference in level, he was quickly able to regain his senses. Damn, even though Ryan regained focus, it was already too late for him to stop the Earth Spear. At the last moment, he tried to step aside, but the Earth Spear still brushed past his cheek, making him bleed a little. Arg! Suddenly Ryan heard a painful voice, and when he looked back, he saw the Earth Spear that David had thrown earlier pierced the chest of one of the students who was standing behind him, killing him instantly. Chapter 434. I will kill you, bastard! Ryan shouted in anger-filled voice when David successfully killed a person, even though he tried to stop him. He didn't care about the death of the C+ rank student, but he still felt humiliated that David was able to kill him. If you all want to stay alive, then come with us obediently, Mason said in a calm voice when he saw Ryan's anger-filled eyes. Come with me, Valerie said, and quickly moved towards Sophie and others. Amy, Gloria and Jackson looked at each other with hesitating eyes, before they also followed Valerie. Even though they knew the chances of defeating the people of the Dark Guild were close to none, they were unwilling to work with them. When Sophie, Mark, Caleb and David saw Valerie was coming towards them, they didn't stop her. Soon Gloria and others also joined them. Acute plus or minus D plus or minus S inverted question mark vel dot C inverted question mark M. Ian, Ben and Cora, who were the students of Arcanum Academy, also looked at each other before moving towards Valerie and others. The three students of Central Academy looked at people of Dark Guild coldly before they also joined Valerie and others. The last member of the Black Raven Academy looked around with hesitating eyes before he went towards people of the Dark Guild. Even though he also felt anger after hearing Ryan and Jamison, he knew there was nothing he could do about it, so instead of fighting against them, he decided to join them. Now there were just 14 people in Valerie's group. Good, Ryan said with anger-filled eyes when he saw what was happening. Mason, Audrey and Jamison looked at everything with amused smiles on their faces. Although they received orders that they had to bring these people to the bases, they also had permission to kill some people if necessary. You can quell your anger on anyone, but you are not allowed to kill that blue-haired girl, Mason said to Ryan calmly when he saw his anger-filled eyes. Ryan looked at Valerie for a moment before nodding his head. He knew that if he killed her, Sarah would not let him go. Where is Evan? Sophie asked in a low voice when Valerie joined them. I don't know, but he was not teleported with us, Valerie replied in a grim voice. You all come with me, Ryan said while looking at all the students who joined them and the 6B+ rank hunters that they brought. Although he was an A rank hunter, he knew he would not be able to face Valerie and others alone. All of them stepped forward and stood beside Ryan except Noah, who was still standing at the same place completely ignoring Ryan. Ryan looked at Noah for a moment, but he did not say anything to him. I will ask you one last time. Will you come with us on your own accord or do you underscore? Hey shorty, can you shut the fuck up? Mark didn't let him finish and said, can't you see we have no intentions of joining you like those sore losers? Ryan's eyes burned with killing intent when he heard Mark. I was thinking that I would only kill that arrogant-looking bastard, Ryan said while looking at David, but now I have changed my mind. I will kill all four of you, he said while pointing towards the member of Clear Sky Academy. There were also 14 hunters in Ryan's group, since other A rankers, and Noah didn't join him, but among these 14 hunters, there were 9 B+ rank hunters. It will be difficult, Leah, one of the students of Central Academy said in a soft voice. There were just 6 B+ rank hunters in their team, so they knew it would be a difficult fight for them, not to mention they also had to keep an eye on Mason and other A rank hunters. Ryan was the first to move, and he shot towards Valerie and the others. The students who joined Dark Guild and the 6 B+ rank hunters who came with Jamison and others also followed him. The muscles of Sophie and the others tensed up, and they all took out their weapons from their storage rings. Ice Nova, a light blue ice ball formed in Valerie's hand, and she shot it towards Ryan and the other hunters. Do you think you can stop me? Ryan shouted in a cold voice and waved his hand, sending a sharp earth spear towards the Ice Nova. A sneer appeared on Valerie's face when she heard Ryan, and suddenly a dark blue ball that was releasing a chilling aura appeared in her hand. Boom! The Earth Spear and Ice Nova collided against each other, creating a small explosion. The ground was split open because of the impact, and then it was frozen solid because of the cold energy of Ice Nova. Taking advantage of the small explosion that obscured Ryan's vision, Valerie threw the dark blue ball towards him. Suddenly all the hairs on Ryan's body stand up to no end. It was not only Ryan, but other hunters who were following him also felt the same chilling sensation. Everything happened so fast that Ryan was just able to create a thin earth wall in front of him before the dark blue ball that Valerie threw exploded in front of him. Glacial Nova Orb, A+ rank. This orb, when thrown, detonates upon impact, releasing a powerful burst of freezing energy. The explosion creates an expanding field of icy frost that freezes all enemies caught within its range, immobilizing them for a significant duration. If the enemies who were caught in the frost explosion are below B+ rank, there is a high chance they will be frozen to death. The range of the frost explosion is 30 meters. Boom. The earth wall that Ryan created crumbled when the Glacial Nova Orb exploded, and the cold energy moved towards him and other hunters who were following him. Ryan's face turned pale when he saw waves of ice-cold energy coming towards him. Whoosh! Suddenly a purple barrier covered him and his automatic safety artifact activated. Crack. The barrier that was covering Ryan was A rank, so it was not able to handle the cold energy waves, and soon cracks started to appear on it. The faces of the hunters who were following Ryan were also pale. Among 13 hunters who followed him, only 7 had automatic safety artifacts. Those 7 were able to stay safe for some time when the cold energy waves of the Glacial Nova Orb reached them, but the remaining 6 hunters were not able to do anything and turned into ice statues. However, the hunters who had safety artifacts were not able to feel happy for long, because soon the barrier covering them started to crack. K Mason and other A-rank hunters were stunned when they saw what just happened, and they moved forward to help Ryan and others. Sophie and others were also shocked because of the sudden turn of events. This is our chance. They all came out of their shocked state when they heard Valerie's voice. If we want to defeat them, we will have to take advantage of the current situation. A sharp-looking light blue spear appeared in Valerie's hand, and her aura started to increase. She is right, this is our best opportunity. Ian also said in a serious voice, and sword aura started to cover his body. Sophie and the others also did not waste time and rushed towards Ryan and the others, whose movements were restricted because of the cold energy of Glacial Nova. Valerie was also about to follow them when suddenly the space behind her rippled a little, and a person holding a sharp dagger appeared behind her, slashing at her arm. When Valerie felt the presence of the person behind her, instead of panicking, her lips curled upwards. "I was waiting for you to show up." The person who appeared behind Valerie heard her cold voice, and the temperature around him started to decrease. Ice Reaper form. Chapter 435. Evan was standing beside Valerie when the formation activated. When the silver light of the formation enveloped his body and he felt the sensation of being teleported away, he immediately understood something was not right. But everything happened so fast that he didn't have time to do anything before his body started disappearing from the stadium field. As he was about to teleport away, Evan saw the nameless host who was hovering above them shoot something towards him. Since all the people were stunned because of the sudden appearance of the formation, no one other than Evan noticed this. When he was hit by the thing that the nameless host shot towards him, Evan felt himself being affected by a strange energy, and suddenly space waves accelerated around him, as if his teleportation destination had been changed. Evan can't help but curse when he felt he was being teleported away to a different location than others. Whoosh! A silver light burst forth, and all the students standing in the field of the stadium disappeared. The nameless host looked around, and after confirming no one noticed what he just did, he sighed in relief. Shadow shrouding wings. Evan immediately activated his defensive skills and temporal velocity, thinking that he could be attacked immediately after being teleported away. He also activated his spiritual senses, so that he would be able to sense all the enemies. There is no one here, but even after 2 seconds of being teleported away, no one attacked Evan, and he found no one within 10 kilometers of his spiritual senses. The jet black wings that were covering him slowly disappeared, and Evan looked around him with a frown on his face. He was standing in a vast expanse of burnt land, and as far as his eyes could see, there was nothing but destroyed land. Suddenly Evan's face changed when a strange energy invaded his body, and his rank started to decrease. The rank of his prime core continued to decrease until it was at C+ rank. His monarch core was also the same, and its rank decreased to C+. You are inside the absolute ceiling formation. Your rank will be reduced to C+, as long as you are in the effect range of absolute ceiling formation. Fu*K Evan cursed inwardly, and his face turned ugly when he saw the two notifications before his eyes. He looked at both of his cores, and saw some deep orange-colored chains were coiling around them, restringing his power. He tried to break the chains around his cores, but was shocked when the chains didn't even budge. Even the power of his monarch core was useless against the coiling chains that were restricting his cores. What kind of formation is this? Evan muttered in a low voice when even after using shadow energy, he wasn't able to break the chains. I don't understand why they used something so precious on you. Suddenly Evan heard a voice from a distance away. He felt a chill down his back as his spiritual senses were still active, but he could not feel the presence of the person who had just spoken. Evan immediately looked in the direction of the voice, and saw a man sitting on top of a burnt rock some distance away. The man was wearing a black robe, and his face was covered by a hood. Just by looking at the man, Evan could feel a strong pressure bearing down on his body. An S-rank hunter, Evan's heart sank when he felt the aura surrounding the man. He could easily tell that the person in front of him was at least as strong as Sebastian. If this were a normal time, he was sure he could fight against him, but currently his cores were sealed, and he had no confidence in fighting against S-rank hunter. Who are you? Although Evan was cursing inwardly, he did show any kind of expression on his face, and asked in a calm voice, I think you should take a look at A acute plus or minus D plus or minus snovel.C inverted question mark M. Kazal completely ignored Evan's question and looked at him up and down, wanting to know what was special about him. He doesn't look anything special to me, Kazal muttered to himself, not understanding why Nate wasted such a good thing on Evan. I better finish this useless task quickly so that I can go back to do something meaningful, Kazal said and stood up. Suddenly all the hair on Evan's body stands up to no end, and his shielding amulet earring activated. *T. Although he was still using temporal velocity, Evan was not able to see anything before Kazal appeared before him and punched in his direction. Feeling the force behind Kazal's punch, Evan crossed his arms in front of his face. Boom dash. Crack dash. The barrier of shielding amulet earring was immediately shattered, and Kazal's punch connected with Evan's crossed hands. The bones of Evan's right hand were broken, and he was sent flying backwards like a broken kite. Oh, Kazal showed a surprised expression when he saw Evan was able to react in time, even though his rank was restricted to C+. *. Evan started to cough out blood after crashing 50 meters away. His whole body was aching, and his right hand became completely useless. Even though I did not use my full power, I am surprised you were able to take it head on without passing out, Kazal said as he walked towards Evan with slow steps. Damn it. If not for this formation, Evan cursed while trying to stand up. Wait a minute. Suddenly Evan thought about the notifications that he received earlier, and something clicked in his mind. You are inside the absolute ceiling formation. Your rank will be reduced to C+, as long as you are in the effect range of absolute ceiling formation. As long as I am in the effect range of the absolute ceiling formation. Evan read the sentence once again. Doesn't it mean if I leave the range of this formation, my rank will return to normal? Evan thought to himself, and activated the skill of his boots, Step of the Voyager. Space ripples came out of his boots, and he instantly appeared 100 kilometers away. But to Evan's shock, he found his cores were still sealed. He knew his time was limited, so he used the skill a second time, and covered 100 more kilometers. *K. But after using the skill second time, Evan could not help but curse, because his cores were still sealed even though he traveled 200 kilometers of distance. A acute plus or minus D plus or minus S inverted question mark vel.C inverted question mark M. Evan took some deep breaths to calm down, and started to run forward. He used all of his skills that increased his agility, but even after 10 minutes, he was not able to leave the effect range of formation. Your efforts are useless. Suddenly Evan heard Kazal's voice, and saw him hovering some distance away from him. You will never be able to leave the effect range of ceiling formation, because this formation is covering the entire floor. Covering the entire floor, Evan muttered in a low voice, not understanding what Kazal meant by the word floor, but suddenly his eyes widened. Don't tell me this place is underscore. Looks like you understand what I mean. Kazal nodded his head when he saw Evan's shocked look. You are currently inside a dungeon, and the entire floor of this dungeon is covered by absolute ceiling formation. Chapter 436. Dungeon. Evan was shocked when he heard he was inside a dungeon. Just what kind of teleportation was that? Evan never heard about a formation that could teleport a person directly inside a dungeon, so he was truly stunned when he heard Kazal. To be honest, I don't like fighting against people who are weaker than me. Suddenly Evan heard Kazal's indifferent voice. Just take this pill and you will save yourself from some pain. Kazal threw a pill towards Evan, who used wind manipulation to catch it. Evan looked at Kazal before he lifted his left hand to touch the pill. The bones of his right hand turned into dust because of Kazal's earlier attack, and now it was completely limp. Nebula slumber pill : the consumer will fall asleep for 72 hours after consuming this pill. Evan read the details of the pill and looked at Kazal with a sneer on his face. You are a hypocritical asshole, Evan said, and crushed the pill that Kazal gave him. Kazal's eyes flashed with cold light when he saw this. You're saying that you don't like fighting against people who are weaker than you, so why don't you shut down this damn formation and fight me fair and square? Kazal looked at Evan for a few seconds before he muttered something to himself. Suddenly he disappeared from the sky, and Evan felt a cold sensation coming from his left side. Before he could react, Kazal was already punching at his left arm, wanting to break it as well. But just when Kazal was a few centimeters away from hitting Evan's left arm, all the hairs on his body stood up. Crackle! T. Kazal stopped his attack midway, and quickly backed away from Evan when arcs of blood-red lightning appeared around him. Whoosh! Kazal disappeared from Evan's left side and appeared 100 meters away from him. After backing away, when he looked at Evan, he noticed how Evan's shadow was now looking like the Gate of Abyss, and blood-red lightning was coming out from it. Suddenly he saw a black claw covered in deep red stripes come out of Evan's shadow, but soon Kazal's face changed when a bloodthirsty aura started to cover the surroundings. Albelu came out of Evan's shadow storage and stood behind him while glaring at Kazal with its burning purple eyes. But Evan knew although Albelu was powerful, there was no way it could defeat Kazal alone. There's no point in holding back in my current state. Because of his sealed cores, Evan was currently weaker than even A-rank monsters. He knew if he decided to hold back in his current situation, there was a high chance he would not be able to defeat Kazal. Kazal was still perplexed because of the sudden appearance of Albelu. When Evan's shadow flickered a bit and its size expanded, Kazal's eyes trembled, and his indifferent face turned pale when he felt tens of auras of A-rank monsters coming out of Evan's shadow. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Roar! Giant shadow after giant shadow came out of Evan's shadow storage and flew towards the sky. I think you should take a look at A acute plus or minus D plus or minus snovel.c inverted question mark M. Roars of wyverns filled the sky, and soon 19 black-colored wyverns were flying above Evan. But it was just the beginning as more and more monsters started to come out of Evan's shadow storage. Roar! The roar of orcs reverted in the surroundings as 5 giant orcs stood around Evan. Astronax was also standing with orcs and was acting like their leader. A1 and A2 stood to the left and right side of the orcs. Snow and Aqua were standing beside Albelu. Ariel came out of below Evan's feet and lifted him up on its back. When Elijah came out, she directly jumped on Ariel's back and started healing Evan's right arm, even though he didn't say anything to her. Hana also jumped up and stood at the top of Ariel's head. Oli was standing at the back of the Shadow Undeads, while holding her Cursebane staff. Kazal was looking at everything with a pale face. All the Shadow Undeads that came out of Evan's shadow storage were A or A+ rank monsters. Just looking at so many monsters, he was getting goosebumps all over his body. Roar! Suddenly a roar that was louder than previous roars resounded, and Kazal's face turned white when a giant hand that was tens of meters long came out of Evan's shadow. Kazal looked with a face full of disbelief as Necros, who was using size manipulation to increase its height, came out of Evan's shadow storage and stood behind all shadow undeads as a 200 meters tall monster. Evan sighed in relief when he saw his shadow undeads were not affected by the formation. There is no core inside their bodies, so it is understandable that my shadow undeads are not affected by this formation, Evan thought to himself. He summoned all of his shadow undeads without holding anything back. Although some of his shadow undeads were not present because they were not with him, the sight of so many monsters was still enough to make Kazal's blood cold. What are all these monsters? Kazal said with a pale and tried to understand what was happening. Evan ignored the pale face of Kazal and used the second effect of the Growth Link skill. Using the Growth Link skill, he took one of Elijah's skills. I hope this skill will be enough to take care of him, Evan thought and looked at Kazal coldly. Elijah, you are in charge of wyverns. Since Rocky was not here, Evan decided to give Elijah full command over wyverns. Elijah nodded her head and jumped up. 2 wings of luminous light appeared behind her back, and she flew towards the wyverns. Kazal was still standing in the same place without moving, trying to understand what was happening, when he suddenly felt a surge of mana and looked up. Kazal's face lost all of its color, and he could not help but curse when he saw tens of different kinds of attacks coming towards him from the sky. Chapter 437. Kazal's face turned pale when all the wyverns launched their attacks on him at the same time. Although he was an S-rank hunter and wyverns were just A rank, the attacks of 19 wyverns combined gave him a strong feeling of dread. The sky was illuminated by different kinds of elements. Fire, water, sand, earth, crystal, all kinds of attack were coming towards him. Shadow steps. Kazal hastily used one of his skills and quickly moved away from the place he was standing. Just as he moved away, all the attacks launched by wyverns reached the ground. Rumble. The floor of the dungeon shook, and the ground crumbled. A giant mushroom cloud rose high in the sky, and shockwaves swept in all directions. Kazal appeared 500 meters away from the place he was standing, and hurriedly created a dark shield around him. Bang! The shockwaves of the explosion struck the shield that Kazal created, making it shudder. Crackle! Albelu, A1 and A2, created a lightning shield around Evan, who was looking at the incoming shockwaves of the explosion with fear in his eyes. My body would definitely explode into blood mist if I were to hit by these shockwaves in my current state. The power of shockwaves that originated from the combined attacks of wyverns was so powerful that even a B+ rank hunter would be severely injured, much less a person like Evan, who was currently struck at C+ rank. Roar! The 5 orcs and Astronax didn't care about the shockwaves and charged towards Kazal. Their bodies were hit by the shockwaves, but because of their monstrous physique, they didn't receive any kind of damage. Just what the K are these monsters? Kazal cursed because he couldn't understand how so many monsters appeared out of nowhere. Currently, Evan's core was sealed at C+ rank, so Kazal was sure that he couldn't summon them, because summoning so many high-level monsters requires a large amount of mana, and Evan's mana was currently limited to C+ rank. If they are not summoned monsters, then what are they? Kazal thought with a grave expression on his face, as he watched Astronax and 5 orcs coming towards him. Seeing 6A rank monsters dared to charge towards him, Kazal felt humiliated and thought he was being underestimated by these monsters. I don't know what is happening, but I am certain that if I want to end this, I will have to catch him. Kazal thought and glanced at Evan, who was standing at the back of Ariel. Since these 6 stupids dared to come to me, I will end their life. First, Kazal took out a black dagger from his storage ring and looked at incoming orcs and Astronax coldly. You are under the effect curse of the haunted. Suddenly a notification flashed before Kazal's eyes, and his expression changed. He looked at the back of the monsters and noticed a black female monster who was standing while holding an eerie-looking staff. Kazal started to hear strange voices inside his mind, making it hard for him to focus on his surroundings. Because the Cursebane staff can enhance the effect of the curse, Oli was able to affect the mind of Kazal, who was an S-rank hunter. Roar! Seeing Kazal was distracted, Astronax pressed its feet on the ground and jumped towards him, wanting to smash his head with its fists. The other 5 orcs did the same and followed Astronax. Damn it! Suddenly a black aura appeared around Kazal, and the effect of the curse of Haunted instantly disappeared. The black dagger in his hand glowed with dark light, and he slashed at the incoming fist of Astronax. Roar! Seeing the black dagger, Astronax did not stop and roared out loud. Crimson aura appeared around its fist, and he clashed against the sharp dagger. Whoosh! Like a hot knife passing through the butter, the sharp dagger easily severed the black hand of Astronax, separating it from its body. Kazal expected to see a painful expression on Astronax's face after he severed its hand, but to his shock, Astronax didn't even flinch when its hand was severed and punched at him using its other hand. Kazal was caught off guard because he never thought that Astronax would completely ignore the pain. He hastily raised his dagger and tried to block its punch. Boom! Although he successfully blocked the punch, Kazal still slid backwards because of the impact, and his arms went numb. Roar! He didn't even get time to regain his balance before the 5 orcs following Astronax attacked him. Kazal gritted his teeth, and the dark aura around his body intensified. He forcefully stopped his body from sliding backwards, and raised his dagger to slash at the 5 orcs. But at this moment, the temperature around him started to decrease, and a layer of frost covered his body, reducing his movement greatly. Some distance away from Kazal, Snow used its ability to the fullest to slow down Kazal. Crackle! A1 and A2 also attacked Kazal, making his body numb, which slowed down his movement speed even more. The 5 orcs took advantage of the opportunity created by Snow, A1 and A2. The muscles of their bodies tensed up, and they punched using their full power. Kazal successfully blocked the attacks of 2 orcs, but he was not able to evade the attack of the remaining 3 orcs because of his slowed movement speed. Bang dash, bang dash, bang dash. The punches of 3 orcs connected with Kazal's body, sending him flying backwards like a broken kite. The physical strength of orcs was no joke. Although Kazal was an S-rank hunter, he still felt his internal organs shaking after taking the attack head-on, and a tickle of blood came out from the corner of his mouth. Kazal was still in mid-air after being sent flying away by orcs, when he saw the sky once again lit up with different kinds of elements. These **king monsters. Kazal could not help but curse when he saw Orvivers were once again preparing to launch their attacks. Although the monsters were weaker than him, they were still able to corner him because of their perfect teamwork. Before Wyverns launched their attack, Kazal saw a beam of white light coming towards him. All hairs on his body stood up, and he twisted his body in mid-air, barely evading the beam that was about to pierce his head. Elijah did not care about her failed attack, and ordered all Wyverns to launch their attack. Shadow Shift, seeing tens of attacks of Wyverns coming toward himself, Kazal gritted his teeth, and used another of his skill. His body suddenly disappeared, and he appeared 200 meters away under the shadow of a giant burnt rock. Boom! The floor of the dungeon once again shook, and shockwaves swept the area as attacks of Wyverns reached the ground. After teleporting away, the first thing Kazal saw was a black hippo that was looking at him with its eerie-looking purple eyes. Before he could do anything, Kazal saw the hippo open its mouth, and a large amount of mana burst forth from its body. **T. Roar! Kazal's mind buzzed, and a light blue sea dragon made of water came out of Aqua's mouth, swallowing Kazal into its wide maw. Although the power of Aqua's sea dragon's roar was weaker than Evan's, Kazal still cried out in pain when the terrifying water pressure pressed down on his body. Damn, you fucking monsters! Suddenly Kazal roared out in anger and slashed using the dagger he was holding. Bang dash! 2 sharp slashes came out of the dagger, and the sea dragon exploded into a puddle of water. ****. Kazal dropped to the ground and coughed out blood, but he did not care about his injuries, and looked at the shadow undeads around him with red eyes. I am going to kill every single one of you, Kazal roared, and without wasting any time activated his unique skill. His body flickered and Kazal's body split into 20. All 20 were looking exactly like him, and were releasing a powerful aura. Whoosh dash! Suddenly all 20 of them disappeared, and before anyone could react, some black flashes covered the surroundings. The black flashes only lasted for 2 seconds, but Evan's expression froze because he lost connection with 20 of his shadow undeads. Aqua, Snow, A1, A2, Astronox, 5 orcs and 10 wyverns from the sky were instantly killed by Kazal. Whoosh dash! Suddenly another black light flashed just behind Evan, and Kazal appeared there slashing his dagger at his neck with red eyes. Chapter 438. After being attacked by so many monsters, Kazal was so angry that he even forgot about his main purpose. Now, instead of capturing Evan, he wanted to kill him. The black dagger in his hand flashed with cold light, and even before anyone could react, he beheaded Evan, who was standing on top of Ariel's back. But instead of feeling delighted after beheading Evan, Kazal's face turned ugly because the head and the body of Evan suddenly exploded in motes of light particles and disappeared in thin air. Howl! A bloodthirsty aura engulfed the surroundings, and blood lightning started to crackle around Albellu. Its body flashed and Albellu activated its newly acquired unique skill Crimson Veil. Suddenly the blood lightning that was cracking around Albellu turned illusionary, and it charged towards Kazal. Kazal was very close to Albellu, so he had no chance of dodging such a sudden attack. When Albellu activated Crimson Veil and charged towards him, Kazal's automatic safety artifact activated, and a green-colored S-rank barrier covered his body. But even after seeing the green barrier, Albellu didn't stop its charge. Its body was crackling with illusionary blood lightning, looking very strange. For some reason, even though Kazal was inside the S-rank barrier, he was feeling a sense of impending doom. Not even 1 second passed since the moment Kazal beheaded Evan, and Albellu already arrived in front of the green barrier. Kazal thought that the wolf in front of him would use a powerful skill that would break the S-rank barrier, which is why he was feeling an impending sense of doom. But his eyes nearly popped out of their sockets when the wolf just moved forward and passed through the green barrier without doing anything. Just as Albellu passed through the barrier, the danger he was feeling all this time multiplied tenfold. Crackle! Blood lightning storm. Evan, who was standing at the top of Necro's head, said in a soft voice. He was hiding behind Necro's horn, which was currently 10 meters long because of its large size. The earlier Evan that Kazal killed was a clone that he created using the skill that he took from Elijah. Prismatic Mirage. Create illusory duplicates of yourself using light manipulation, confusing enemies, and allowing you to evade attacks. The number of duplicates you can create depends on your rank. Even after summoning all of his shadow undeads, Evan knew that it would be very difficult to stop Kazal if he decided to attack him. After all, no matter what, he was still an S-rank hunter. So in order to protect himself and deceive Kazal, he took Elijah's skill and created a trap for him. He didn't send Albellu to fight against Kazal, because he already guessed that at some point, Kazal would definitely try to attack him, and he would be able to use it to his advantage. Crimson Veil. Using the blood lightning as a medium, the user can become partially incorporeal. While in this state, the user can phase through obstacles and attacks. This state will last for 15 seconds. The power of blood lightning increases by 150% while the user is in a partially incorporeal state. Because of using Crimson Veil, Albellu was easily able to pass through the barrier that was protecting Kazal. Howl! Just as it passed through the barrier, the lightning around Albellu intensified, and a storm of blood lightning came out of its body. Kazal's face turned pale when he felt the power of blood lightning. Because of its sinister nature, the blood lightning was already more powerful than normal lightning, and now that Albellu was under the effect of Crimson Veil, which increased the power of blood lightning by 150%, the attack power behind Albellu's lightning was simply horrifying. Moreover, the barrier that was supposed to protect him was now Kazal's biggest enemy, since it didn't allow blood lightning to spread in large area, and most of the lightning arcs directly struck him. A large area of the dungeon floor was illuminated by dark red color as the green barrier that was covering Kazal glowed with red light because of Albellu's attack. He won't be able to survive, right? Evan muttered in a low voice and looked at the blood red barrier. Boom dash. In just 20 seconds, barrier that was covering Kazal and Albellu shattered with a booming sound, and the blood lightning slowly started to disappear. Evan looked at the disappearing lightning with a serious gaze while holding Necro's horn. How is this possible? When lightning completely disappeared and Evan was able to see properly, he could not help but say out in a shocked voice. The blood lightning arcs that were crackling around Albellu completely disappeared, and the next second, its body turned into black smoke. A painful grunt escaped from Kazal's mouth as he pulled back the dagger that he just used to behead Albellu. He staggered backwards and barely stabilized himself. Kazal was missing his left arm, and his whole body was covered in injuries. Most of the skin from his body disappeared, and his flesh and bones were visible to the naked eye. Blood lightning was still covering the wounds on his body, and the ground around him was scorched black. Even though he was in a bad condition, Kazal was still alive. How can he stay alive after Alblu's attack? Evan muttered in a shocked voice, looking at Kazal, who had a painful expression on his face. Suddenly Evan noticed that some parts of Kazal's body was still covered by the black robe. That *ing robe was definitely an artifact, since the black robe was not completely destroyed even after Alblu's terrifying attack. Evan was sure that the black robe that Kazal was wearing was an artifact. What the hell he is doing? Evan frowned when he saw Kazal lifting his black dagger. Poochie dash. Red blood gushed out as Kazal pierced the dagger in his stomach. Evan looked at him with a blank look, not understanding what he was doing. But the next second his expression changed when the dagger in Kazal's hand released a crimson glow and covered his entire body. Whoosh dash. K. Evan's eyes opened wide, and he could not help but curse when he saw how all the injuries that Kazal suffered till now disappeared in an instant. Chapter 439. The person who suddenly appeared behind Valerie was an A-rank hunter. Since he could not kill her because of the orders he received, he slashed at her hand, wanting to immobilize her. Ice Reaper form. But his body shuddered when he heard Valerie's cold voice. The temperature around him started to decrease at frightening speed, and his body stiffened. Valerie's appearance instantly changed the moment she used the power of her Ice Reaper physique. Her skin turned pale white like a vampire, and the green color of her eyes turned silver. Her light blue hair also changed color and became silver white. A cold light blue aura burst forth from her body, and the hands of the man who was slashing at her instantly froze. The light blue spear in Valerie's hand flashed, and she twisted her body at a 180 degrees angle while slashing backward. The man who attacked her just felt a cold sensation on his neck before his head flew into the sky. Surprisingly, not even a drop of blood was spilt out, even though the man's head was separated from his body, because just as he was beheaded, the light blue spear in Valerie's hand released a cold aura, instantly freezing the rest of his body. Surprisingly, even after the man's head was separated from his body, not a single drop of blood fell out, because as soon as he was decapitated, the light blue spear in Valerie's hand released a cold aura that instantly froze his whole body, including his blood. Sophie and others who rushed forward before Valerie just felt a cold aura covering the surroundings and saw how the expressions of Audrey, Mason and Jamison froze. All three of them even stopped helping Ryan and others and just stood at the same place with a dumbfounded look. When Sophie and others followed their gaze and looked back, their eyes met with the ice-cold silver-colored eyes of Valerie, who was looking at people of dark guilt coldly. Even though she wasn't looking at them, Sophie and others still felt a chill running down their spine when they looked at her. Currently, the look on her face was extremely cold, and the cold, powerful aura that was coming out of her body was making people shudder. Even the A-rank hunters felt their bodies shuddering just by looking at her. The last time she fought against Carlos, her physique was not fully awakened, but now it was fully awakened, and her rank had also reached B+, so the effect of Ice Reaper form was even more powerful. Although my physique is fully awake, I wouldn't be able to last more than 5 minutes in this state without damaging my soul, Valerie thought inwardly, and a chilling light flashed in her eyes. Her mana was being consumed rapidly, and she could feel the presence of another hunter who was looking at everything from the distance. In her Ice Reaper form, Valerie had enough confidence in facing A-rank hunters, but the person who was watching everything from the distance was giving her a bad feeling. Let's hope he shows up here before I run out of mana, Valerie sighed inwardly. But her expression remained cold outside. She took a step forward, the ground below her feet froze, and she used her skill Ice Walk. Whoosh dash. She instantly appeared before Mason, Audrey and Jamison, who were still stunned after seeing what just happened. You all take care of those trash guys, Valerie said to Sophie and others as she appeared before 3 A-rank hunters and stabbed her spear towards Jamison's head. Her current agility was so fast that Mason and others just saw a white blur before she appeared before them. Damn it. Jamison's face changed when he saw Valerie's spear coming towards his head. He lifted the giant hammer in his hands and barely blocked the spear. Whoosh. Just as Valerie's spear touched the hammer, a cold aura burst forth from it, making Jamison's hands go numb. He staggered backwards because of the cold, and his grip around the hammer loosened. Valerie was ready to attack him once again, but Mason and Audrey, who was standing beside Jamison, finally made their move. Audrey used a fiery red whip in her hand to attack her. Meanwhile, Mason slashed at her using his sharp cleaver. Ice wall, Valerie said in a low voice, and an ice wall appeared in front of the attacks. The surprise thing was that, instead of normal light blue or white, the color of the ice was also silver white, just like her hair. The cleaver and whip struck the ice wall. The ice wall trembled and some cracks appeared on it, but it successfully stopped their attacks. Sophie, Amy, Mark and others were also fighting against the other people of the Dark Guild. The effect of the glacial nova orb already ended, and Ryan was able to escape from it with just some minor injuries. But currently, he was surrounded by Sophie, Mark, James and Celeb. All 4 members of Clear Sky Academy were fighting against him. Meanwhile, Amy, Gloria and others were taking care of the hunters who followed Ryan. Because of the glacial nova orb, 6 hunters who followed Ryan turned into ice statues. 4 of the 6 hunters who were frozen instantly died because of the cold energy, while 2 were still alive, but they couldn't break free from the ice. Cora and Leah, who were B-rank hunters, went towards the 2 frozen hunters and killed them, while they were still frozen in the ice. After killing them, they joined Ian and others to fight against the remaining people of the Dark Guild. All the people of the Dark Guild were nervous because of Valerie's sudden counterattack. Just by looking at the fight, all of them could tell that Valerie had the advantage in the fight, even though she was fighting 3 against 1. Boom. Arg! A small painful grunt escaped from Mark's mouth as he stopped Ryan's attack, who was trying to kill Khaled. Damn it, Ryan's expressions were grim as he looked around. Where are you looking, son of bit*H? James shot a sharp earth bullet towards Ryan, not allowing him to help other members of the Dark Guild. Ryan gritted his teeth and punched the incoming bullet, shattering it into dust particles. Swish! Suddenly a sharp light flashed behind Ryan's back, and Sophie appeared there, slashing her dagger at his neck. Ryan quickly jumped away and created an earth wall, barely stopping Sophie's attack. You bastards! Ryan's face turned red from anger because of the continuous attacks of Sophie and others. Even though their rank was lower than him, they were still able to face him because of their perfect teamwork. Arg! Just when Ryan was thinking what he should do, a sharp scream rang out in the surroundings, attracting everyone's attention. Chapter 440. Arg! A sharp scream drew the attention of Sophie and all the others who were fighting. When they looked in the direction of the scream, the eyes of members of the Dark Guild widened while the faces of Sophie and others lit up. Freeze, Valerie said in a cold voice, and Jamison's heart, which had been pierced by her spear, immediately froze. Thump. With a thumping sound, Jamison dropped to the ground, and his life aura disappeared. Kill these assholes! Seeing how Valerie killed another A-rank hunter, Jackson shouted out loud and pierced the neck of a B+ rank hunter with his lightning blade, who was distracted by the sudden death of Jamison. The faces of Audrey and Mason were also pale, because although Valerie was alone and her rank was just B+, both of them had no confidence in defeating her. Damn, Brutus, why the hell you are not helping us? Mason suddenly looked back and shouted in an angry and fear-filled voice. Valerie's face changed when she heard Mason, and she waved her hand. Tens of silver white ice swords appeared in the air and shot towards Mason and Audrey. Firewall. Audrey's face turned white when she felt the sharp and cold aura of the swords. She quickly created a firewall in front of her and tried to back away. Mason slashed using his cleaver and stopped some of the ice swords, but there were just too many of them. Arg! Some of the ice sword pierced Mason's body. The cold energy inside them burst forth, and his body started to freeze from the inside. The icy energy of the swords caused him to slow down, and he lost control of his body, as a result of which he fell to the ground. Valerie's eyes flashed with killing intent when she saw this, and without hesitation, she moved forward to finish off Mason. Audrey's face changed when she saw this, but she couldn't do anything to stop Valerie, because she was already having a difficult time stopping the ice swords. The sharp tip of Valerie's spear flashed with a light blue color, and she stabbed towards Mason's head. Just when Valerie's spear was a few centimeters away from piercing Mason's head, a sense of impending doom engulfed Valerie's body. She forcefully stopped her attack midway and quickly used Ice Walk to move back. Boom. Just as she moved back, something fell from the sky right at the place she was standing a moment ago, rising a small dust cloud in the process. Mason was blown away by the shockwaves, and the injuries he suffered because of the ice swords deepened. Valerie looked at the small dust cloud with a serious look on her face, and her grip around the spear tightened. Amy and others also looked at the small dust cloud with a serious expression on their faces. Most of the people of the Dark Guild were already killed by them, and only 2 B+ rank hunters and Ryan were left. Not bad, you are indeed the daughter of that A** shoal. Suddenly Valerie heard a heavy voice, and the dust cloud was blown away, revealing the figure of a tall, muscular-looking man. The man was around 210 cm tall, and there was long a scar on his face. The aura around the man was far stronger than Mason and others, and was giving an oppressive feeling. Valerie closed her eyes for a moment when she saw the man, and the aura around her became bone-chilling. "Looks like you are not happy to see me, my dear niece," the man said in a mocking voice when he saw Valerie's cold expression. Valerie didn't reply, and instead charged towards him without saying anything. "I just have little over 2 minutes," Valerie thought, looking at her mana reserve and the condition of her body. "What a rude brat," Brutus said while shaking his head when he saw Valerie charging towards him. A cold light flashed in his deep blue eyes, and he took a step forward. Iron Fist, a metallic aura appeared around Brutus's arm. The muscles of his body tensed up, and the aura of peak A+ rank hunter exploded outward as he punched in Valerie's direction. Boom! The surrounding air exploded and the ground was split open. A powerful fist force shot in Valerie's direction, destroying everything that came into its path. Valerie felt a strong feeling of dread when she saw the incoming fist force, but she did not stop, and continued to charge towards Brutus. The spear in her hand glowed and she slashed upwards, summoning a fierce blizzard to meet the fist force. The two powers clashed, ice against the fist force, and the ground shook with the force of the impact. Boom! The ground within 100 meters of the area crumbled, and many trees were blown away by the powerful shockwaves that spread in the surroundings. Dust and debris flew everywhere, obstructing everyone's vision. Whoosh! Suddenly tens of silver-white icicles rained down upon Brutus. Seeing incoming icicles, Brutus just sneered, and did not even try to dodge them. A metallic glow appeared around him, and he stood at the same place without doing anything. Clang, 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 clang. The sound of metal clashing against metal rang out, and all the icicles crumbled after colliding against Brutus's body. "If that's all you have, then you've disappointed me greatly. Such a weak attack won't even leave a scratch on my body," Brutus said in a disappointed voice, completely ignoring the icicles that were powerful enough to kill any A-rank hunter. "Don't worry. I know your pigskin is too thick to receive any damage from such an attack." Suddenly a cold voice resounded in the area, and Brutus' expression changed. Whoosh! Valerie jumped into the air, coming out of the dust cloud. The spear in her hand was glowing with light blue light, and a silver-white orb was spinning at the tip of it. "That's why I prepared this attack, especially for you." Valerie twisted her body and threw her spear towards Brutus, using her full power. Frozen World. Chapter 441. Knowing Brutus was a peak A+ rank hunter, Valerie already knew she wouldn't be able to harm him using normal attacks, especially because of his powerful defensive skills. She was losing mana at a very fast speed because of Ice Reaper form, and although she could replenish mana using a potion, the burden of using the full power of her physique was still too much for her. So instead of wasting her energy in a meaningless fight, she decided to use her strongest attack, while he was still distracted. Taking advantage of dust and debris that were blocking everyone's vision, Valerie activated her unique skill Frozen World, that she used during the practical exam of the academy. But this time, instead of directly casting the skill, she used her spear as a medium to cast her skill. The spear was actually an A+ rank artifact that could increase the power of all of her ice-type skills by 100%. As she activated the skill through the spear, a silver-white orb formed at the tip of the spear. The orb was releasing a frighteningly chilling aura, but Valerie controlled it, so that Brutus wouldn't be able to notice it. Valerie's face turned completely white as she used most of her mana to make the skill as powerful as possible. Her silver-white hair started to turn light blue, once again indicating her Ice Reaper form was fading. When she only had 5% of her mana left, Valerie pressed her feet on the ground and jumped up, coming out of the dust cloud. She twisted her body in mid-air to gather momentum, and threw her spear towards Brutus, who was looking at her with frightening eyes, after feeling the power of the small orb that was spinning at the tip of the spear. Frozen world. Bang! The spear broke the sound barrier and turned into a streak of blue light that instantly appeared before Brutus. Brutus's face turned pale when he felt the terrifying cold energy of the frozen world skill. Metallic mirror. He hastily used his most powerful defensive skill, and a sheet of transparent metal rose in front of him. Just as the shield appeared in front of him, the spear Valerie threw struck it. For a moment, time seemed to stop when the spear's tip struck the shield. But the next second, a feeling of dread that was far stronger than they felt till now engulfed everyone who were present there. The silver-white orb that was spinning at the tip of the spear started to shake. K. Ryan felt his body turning cold, and he turned around to run away from there. But just as he turned around to run away, whoosh! The silver-white orb exploded, and a burst of icy energy spread outwards in all directions. Ryan, who turned around to run away, just felt a cold sensation all over before his body turned into a silver-white colored ice statue. The faces of Sophie and others also turned pale when the icy energy exploded outwards. The moment they felt the power of icy energy, they lost all hope of surviving. But surprisingly, when the icy energy reached them, it just made their bodies shiver, but did not freeze them. On the other hand, Mason and Audrey were also frozen solid just like Ryan and turned into ice statues. The life aura of all 3A rank hunters instantly disappeared the moment they turned into ice statues, because the silver-white ice not only froze their bodies, it also froze their blood, muscles and organs. The range of Frozen World was far larger than the time when Valerie used it during the exam. At that time it only froze the area of 300 meters. But now that her rank increased and she was in her Ice Reaper form, the area that was affected by her skill was 10 kilometers. Everything within 10 kilometers was enclosed inside silver-white ice. Be it was rock, tree or ground, everything was enclosed inside ice. The entire area looked like a world frozen inside silver-white ice. But Valerie was not paying attention to any of it. Her eyes were fixed on the place where Brutus was standing. Because of being the center of impact, the area where he was standing was covered by dense ice mist that was obstructing everyone's vision. Valerie's eyelids were heavy, and she wanted nothing more than to collapse to the ground to take some rest. She already returned to her normal appearance, and her Ice Reaper form ended. But she knew she could not collapse before confirming Brutus's death. She extended her hand while panting heavily, and the spear that she threw earlier returned back to her. Sophie and others were also looking at the place where Brutus was standing with serious eyes. All the remaining people of the Dark Guild were killed when Valerie used Frozen World, so only they were left there. There is no way he would survive after taking an attack like this, Ian spoke in fear-filled voice. He was looking at Valerie like he was looking at a monster. He still could not believe that she killed most of the people of the Dark Guild alone. I also think he would not be able to Sir. Whoosh. Suddenly the ice mist was blown away, and Valerie's eyes trembled as the figure of a man instantly appeared before her and punched her. T. Valerie quickly lifted her spear and tried to block the punch coming toward her. Boom. Valerie felt a terrifying force being transmitted to her body through the spear, and she was sent flying backwards. The impact was so powerful that she coughed out blood in mid-air even before crashing to the ground. Damn you bit*h. If not for the fact that I need to bring you alive, I would have killed you right now, Brutus said in a rage-filled voice, as he lowered his hand that he just used to attack Valerie. Sophie and others were shocked when they saw Brutus was still alive. Even though he was not in his best condition and the left side of his body was almost frozen solid, he was still alive. He is not in the best condition. If we work together we should be able to kill him, Mark suddenly said, bringing them out of their shocked state. Sophie and the others looked at each other and nodded their heads. Brutus was the only one who was left there, so they knew if they wanted to escape, they had to take care of him. All of them charged towards him at the same time. When Brutus saw this, He just sneered and waved his hand. Metal prisons. Suddenly cages of metal appeared around Sophie and others, and they were trapped inside. They tried to use their skills to break the cage, but it was completely useless. Although Brutus was badly injured, his skills were still far more powerful than Sophie and others. Brutus completely ignored Sophie and others after trapping them, and walked towards Valerie with slow steps. While walking, he was using his mana to break the ice that was enclosing the left side of his body. "I can't kill you because of the orders I received," Brutus said, and a metal sword materialized in his right hand. "But no one said I can't chop your hands, right?" Valerie was still trying to stand up after receiving Brutus's earlier attack, but because of the condition of her body, she was not able to stand up. "So, which hand should I cut off first?" Valerie heard Brutus's voice and saw him standing in front of her. "So, I failed her," Valerie thought inwardly and smiled bitterly. She stopped trying to stand up and closed her eyes. When Brutus saw Valerie was not saying anything, he felt annoyed and lifted his sword to cut off the hand she used to throw the spear earlier. But just as he lifted his sword, the surrounding area suddenly turned dark, and a small black sun appeared a few meters above the frozen ground. Chapter 442. Evan's expression changed when he saw how Kazal fully recovered using a strange ability of his dagger. "Come back." All the mana present in Evan's body instantly disappeared, and he summoned back Snow, Astronax, A1, A2, Equar and 5 orcs who were killed by Kazal earlier. Since his core was restricted to C+ rank, he did not have enough mana to summon all the shadow undeads that were killed by Kazal. After appearing, all the summoned shadow undeads, including the previous one, once again rushed towards Kazal. Meanwhile, Evan took out a dark blue potion from his shadow storage. Full Mana Recovery Potion. Recovers 100% mana of the user upon consumption. This potion can only be used once every 5 hours. He bought this potion using the merit points that he earned during the monster tide of Naflium City. The price of this potion was 10,000 merits points, so Evan only had 2 of this. F***K this bastard. I never thought I would be forced to use this potion, just to fill up my C+ rank. Core Evan cursed while gulping down the potion. The potion turned into warm liquid when he drank it, and all of his mana instantly recovered. After recovering his mana, Evan quickly summoned Albelu. But he didn't send Albelu to fight against Kazal, because he wanted to try something. Kazal was perplexed when he saw Snow and other shadow undeads again. He couldn't understand how they came back again when he just killed them a minute ago. But unlike last time, this time Kazal had enough information about the abilities of shadow undeads, so he was prepared for them. When one of the orcs punched him, Kazal did not try to attack it like last time, because he already knew these monsters couldn't feel pain. Even if he severed their limbs or pierced their heart, they would continue to attack him. The only way to stop them was to behead them. So Kazal used his high agility, and avoided most of the attacks of shadow undeads. Suddenly one of the orcs made a mistake, and Kazal did not miss the chance. His black dagger flashed, and even though the defense of the orc was quite high, he easily beheaded it. The body of the orc dropped to the ground and disappeared into black smoke. I knew that if I didn't eliminate him in one go, he would be able to adapt to the situation. Evan gritted his teeth as he lost connection with one of his orcs. He looked at Albelu and took a deep breath. If it doesn't work, then I'll be in big trouble this time, Evan thought to himself, and used his shadow possession skill. He chose Albelu as his target, who suddenly turned into black smoke. The smoke went towards Evan and was absorbed by his body. If my power doesn't increase even after this, then I am a lost cause, Evan thought to himself as he lost his connection with A1 and another orc. Suddenly Evan's appearance started to change. His height increased to 3 meters, and black fur started to grow on his body. His teeth changed into canines, looking like wolf fangs sharp enough to tear human flesh. His nails turned into claws that can rip apart anyone. In just a few seconds his look completely changed, and now he was looking like a black werewolf. Even though the power of his claws was still restricted because of absolute ceiling formation, his aura was far more powerful than even an A+ rank hunter. Kazal, who was fighting against shadow undeads, once again felt a bloodthirsty aura spreading in the surroundings. But for some reason, he felt something was off about this aura. The bloodlust he was feeling in the aura was so powerful that for a moment he felt like he was standing inside a sea of blood. Kazal looked in the direction from where the bloodlust was coming, and his eyes met with the beastly blood-red eyes of a tall monster. What the F***K is that? For the first time in his life, Kazal felt fear when he looked into those eyes. Suddenly the area at the top of Necro's head started to turn blood red, and the bloodthirsty aura in the surroundings started to increase at a rapid speed. Evan's aura, which was a little stronger than a peak A+ rank hunter, also started to increase and cross the S rank mark. "Yeah, I will kill everyone." Suddenly, Evan muttered in a strange voice. Crackle. F***K Kazal just heard the sound of lightning crackling before he felt a threat like never before. Just by pure instinct, he lifted his black dagger in front of his face, and bang dash. Crackle. A sharp claw covered in blood-red lightning struck the black dagger, and Kazal was sent flying backwards like a broken kite. COUGH**. The impact was so powerful that his internal organs shook, and he spat out blood in mid-air. Suddenly Evan waved his hand to his right side, and the head of the orc that was standing some distance away flew into the sky. All the shadow undeads who were near Evan quickly backed away, feeling something was wrong with him. "There is no blood," Evan said to himself after killing the orc, and the deep red aura that was coming out from his body intensified. He completely ignored the other shadow undeads, and looked back at Kazal, who just crashed 100 meters away. Seeing blood coming out of Kazal's mouth, a cruel smile appeared on his face. Crackle! Blood lightning crackled around him, and he instantly appeared above Kazal, attacking him using his sharp claws. Puff! Evan's claw dug inside Kazal's chest, but his body burst into a puff of black smoke. "Die, you bastards!" Suddenly Kazal appeared behind Evan and slashed at his neck. Evan reacted quickly and lifted one of his hands to block the dagger. Poochie dash! Red blood gushed out, and a deep wound appeared on Evan's hand. Kazal's eyes trembled when his dagger just made a deep wound on Evan's hand, and wasn't able to sever it. Whoosh! Evan completely ignored the wound on his hand and slashed at Kazal using his second hand. Arg! Evan was using lightning to increase his speed, so even though Kazal reacted quickly, Evan's claw still ripped open a large wound on his shoulder. Evan looked at his claw, which was stained in Kazal's blood, and his blood-red eyes gleamed. The synergy between you and skill Bloodlust has reached its peak. You have permanently acquired the unique skill Bloodlust. Chapter 443. Normally whenever Evan uses his Shadow Possession skill, he doesn't lose control over his emotions after merging with his Shadow Undead. But this time when he used the Shadow Possession skill and merged with Albelu, he felt a strong desire to kill. Just after merging with Albelu, his urge to kill reached a completely different level. Kill, kill, kill. Something inside his head was constantly urging him to kill. It was the first time Evan's emotions were influenced by merging with his Shadow Undead. He knew that after evolving into Blood Lightning Wolf, Albelu's nature became bloodthirsty, but he never thought that he would also get influenced by it if he merged with it using Shadow Possession. As his emotions started to get out of control, a blood-red aura started to come out of his body. Although his mind was filled with a strong urge to kill, he still had some sanity left, and his monster instincts were telling him that he was still weaker than Kazal, even though he merged with Albelu. His cores were still restricted to C+ rank, and most of his power was coming from Albelu, which was not enough to face Kazal. The duration of his Shadow Possession was just 2 minutes, so he subconsciously activated Albelu's second unique skill. Bloodlust unique skill, when activated, increases the user's power by 300% for the duration of 3 minutes. While the skill is activated, the user will have a strong urge to kill, and there is a high chance that the user will lose control over his emotions and become a mindless killer. Just as Evan activated the Bloodlust skill, his remaining sanity vanished into thin air. The bloodlust he was feeling reached a completely different level, and because of the effect of bloodlust, his power started to increase like crazy. When he attacked Kazal and his claw ripped off a large wound on his shoulder, Evan felt a strange feeling budding inside him. Looking at his claw that was stained in blood, Evan's bloodlust started to increase even more. At this point, he completely lost control, and the only thing that was in mind was to kill Kazal. The synergy between you and skill Bloodlust has reached its peak. You have permanently acquired the unique skill Bloodlust. Evan completely ignored the notifications that flashed before him, and blood lightning surged outwards from his body. Damn, What kind of monster is this? He is completely different from the other black monsters that I faced earlier. Kazal tried his best to dodge Evan's vicious attacks, and thought to himself. Unlike shadow undeads who didn't show any kind of emotions while fighting against him, Evan was releasing such a high amount of bloodlust that Kazal started to feel suffocate. In just 1 minute, Kazal's body was riddled with different kinds of injuries, and he was bleeding from all over the places. Of course, Evan was not unharmed either, because he completely ignored defense and solely focused on attacking. There were many deep wounds on his body. In reality, his condition was even worse than Kazal's. There were many occasions where Kazal almost killed him because of his careless attitude. If not for the high defense that he received after merging with Albelu and the absurd agility that the lightning element provided, he would have died long ago. There was just one minute remaining before the duration of shadow possession ended, but instead of coming back to his senses, Evan's bloodlust was continuously increasing. Even though he is powerful, there is nothing to afraid of if he is just attacking like a mindless beast, Kazal thought, as he dodged Evan's attack with minimal effort, and inflicted another wound on his chest. The wound was so deep that even his ribs were visible from outside. But even after receiving such a grave wound, Evan completely ignored the pain, and continued to attack Kazal like a mindless beast. Before using shadow possession, Evan never thought that he would lose control over his emotions and turn into a mindless beast. If he knew something like this would happen because of merging with Albelu, he would have chosen a different shadow undead to merge with himself. When there were just 50 seconds left in the duration of shadow possession, suddenly some strange mental waves covered the area where Kazal and Evan were fighting. Kazal's expressions changed when the mental waves covered the area. The waves completely ignored Kazal and went inside Evan's body. Kazal glanced in the direction from where the mental waves were coming from, and saw a small black cat standing some distance away from him. What are these Kazal's words got stuck inside his mouth, and his eyes opened wide when he finally understood what was happening. The bloodlust that was coming out of Evan's body slowly started to decrease as the mental waves that Hana released went inside his body. It was one of Hana's psychic skills called Mind Pacify. This skill can calm down people's minds. When Kazal noticed how Evan's bloodlust was decreasing, his face turned ugly. Just after fighting against Evan for 1 minute, he could tell that he was able to harm Evan, because he was fighting like a mindless beast. He was sure that if Evan returned to normal and stopped fighting like a mindless beast, it would be very hard for him to face him. I need to stop it. Kazal's eyes flashed with killing intent as he looked at Hana. Suddenly Kazal dodged one of Evan's attacks, and charged towards Hana. Roar! But before he could reach near Hana, Astronox appeared in front of him. K of Kazal did not care about Astronox and slashed at its neck using his dagger. But just as he slashed at it, a deep blue aura covered Astronox's body, as it used its unique skill Titanic Resilience. Titanic Resilience, unique skill. When activated, you gain temporary invulnerability to all incoming damage, allowing you to easily ignore all attacks. However, you cannot attack or use other skills during this state. The invulnerability status will last for 10 seconds, and can only be used once every 3 hours. Clang! The sound of metal clashing against metal rang out, and Kazal's dagger was not even able to scratch Astronox's body. Kazal was so shocked that his eyes nearly popped out from their eye sockets. But he did not get time to think about it, because suddenly a sense of impending doom engulfed his body. He looked up in the sky and saw hundreds of light beams coming towards him. It was Alicia's unique skill Lightfall Cataclysm. Lightfall Cataclysm, unique skill. Channel immense light energy into the sky, causing a rain of searing light beams to descend upon the battlefield, leaving a trail of destruction. Alicia controlled the light beams that were raining down from the sky, and targeted Kazal. Feeling the powerful energy that light beams were releasing, Kazal had no choice but to back away from there. Damn it, Kazal couldn't help but curse when he was not able to kill Hana, and was forced to back away. But at this moment he suddenly realized something and looked in Evan's direction. And when he looked in Evan's direction, his face turned pale because the bloodlust that was coming out from Evan's body reduced greatly, and his eyes were fixed on him. Chapter 444. Just as Brutus lifted his sword to cut off Valerie's arm, a small dark sun appeared a few meters above the frozen ground, and a large area was engulfed in darkness. When darkness suddenly engulfed the area, Brutus's expression changed. and he quickly created a metal shield behind him. Bang! The metal shield Brutus created shattered with a loud bang, and a small black claw struck him right at his back. Cough asterisk. Brutus coughed out blood because of the impact, and was sent flying away. When Valerie heard the sound of the loud bang, she quickly opened her eyes, but all she saw around her was darkness. What the hell is happening now? Valerie muttered in a dazed voice while looking around in the darkness. The darkness was very thick, and she could see only a few meters in front of her. Swish! Brutus, who just crashed to the ground, heard the sound of wind slicing, and all hairs on his body stood up. He tried to jump away to avoid the attack, but to his dismay, because his body was frozen from the left side, he was not able to move away in time. A sharp claw came towards his neck, slicing apart the wind. In the last second, Brutus lifted his right hand and covered it in metal to stop the claw. Poochie! The painful scream rang out, and red blood gushed out like a fountain as a hand was sent flying into the sky. When Valerie heard Brutus's scream, she stood up with difficulty and moved in the direction of the scream. F***K. What kind of monster is this? Brutus tried to stop the blood that was coming out from his severed arm, and looked at the small panther in front of him with fearful eyes. The panther was just an A-rank monster, but the aura that was coming out from its body was comparable to an A+ rank monster. Eclipse's purple eyes flashed when he saw the fearful look in Brutus's eyes, and his body suddenly disappeared into thin air. Brutus tried to sense Eclipse's position, but the darkness that was covering the area was restricting his senses, so he was not able to find it. I need to get out of here. Brutus immediately decided to run away when he wasn't able to find Eclipse's position. His left arm was still frozen, and he just lost his right arm. Currently he was so weak that even an A-rank hunter could kill him. But just as he thought about running away, he felt a stinging pain in his abdomen and staggered backwards. Brutus looked down at his abdomen, and was terrified to see a deep claw mark there. Blood was coming out from the wound, and even his guts were visible from it. Whoosh! Suddenly Eclipse appeared in front of Brutus, and its claw headed towards his neck, wanting to end his life. Die, you wretched monster! But before Eclipse's claw could touch his neck, tens of sharp metal spikes came out of the ground and pierced its body. Puff! But just as metal spikes pierced Eclipse's body, it burst into a puff of black smoke and disappeared. Not good. Swish! Suddenly Brutus heard the sound of wind slicing and tried to move away. But before he could move away, a sharp claw covered in a deep black aura came from behind his back and touched his neck. Brutus just felt a sharp cold sensation on his neck, and his eyes met with the burning purple eyes of Eclipse, before his head was sent flying into the sky. A fountain of blood came out from Brutus's body, and he dropped to the ground motionless. Valerie, who was following the sound of fighting, just arrived there and saw how a small black monster beheaded Brutus. When Valerie arrived there and Eclipse looked at her, she felt a chill running down her spine. Currently, she was in a weakened state, and she knew that the monster in front of her could kill her without any effort. But Eclipse just glanced at her for a moment before ignoring her. Evan had asked Eclipse to keep an eye on Noah. When the team of Arcanum Academy arrived in Central City, Chapter 406, he thought that since Noah had a unique physique, there was a chance that the Dark Guild would try to capture him. But nothing like that happened during the time Eclipse was keeping an eye on him. Evan was disappointed when Dark Guild didn't try to attack Noah, because he wanted to gather some information from them. While leaving for the stadium from the hotel, Evan thought about summoning back Eclipse. But in the end, he decided to let it go with Noah, so that it would immediately inform him if anything happened. Even after arriving in the stadium, Eclipse was following Noah. It stopped following him when the participants entered the small world. Evan was afraid that if Eclipse went inside the small world, Natasha would be able to sense it, so he asked it to just wait for Noah to come out. When all the participants went inside the small world, Eclipse just stood in one of the corners of the stadium field without doing anything, and when participants came out and Dennis activated the formation, it was teleported away with them. A few minutes after being teleported away, Evan contacted it using his shadow senses, and after looking at the situation, he asked it to help Valerie and others in case of emergency. So when it saw Brutus was about to cut off Valerie's arm, Eclipse used its unique skill Eclipsing Strike. Eclipsing Strike, unique skill. You can summon a temporary solar eclipse for 3 minutes, shrouding the area in darkness. During this time, you will gain immense power. Cooldown time, 4 hours. Because of using its unique skill, Eclipse power increased greatly, and since Brutus was already injured by Valerie, it was not hard for it to kill him. Valerie sighed in relief when she saw the panther did not attack her. Slowly the darkness covering the area started to disappear, and the surroundings returned to normal. The cage that was trapping Sophie and others also disappeared when Eclipse killed Brutus. After coming out of the metal cage, they all looked around, and after seeing Valerie, quickly went towards her. Are you a_SHHH? Sophie wanted to ask if she was fine, but Valerie signaled her to keep quiet and pointed in front of her. When Sophie and others looked in the direction Valerie was pointing, their eyes opened wide as they saw Brutus's headless corpse, and a black panther that was breaking the silver-white ice that was covering Brutus's left arm. After slicing the ice that was trapping Brutus's left arm, Eclipse took off his storage ring and disappeared from there. Mark and the others looked at everything with dumbfounded looks on their faces, not understanding why a monster took away Brutus's storage ring. But suddenly something clicked in Caleb's mind when he remembered the appearance of the panther, and his eyes opened wide. He looked at Sophie, Mark and David, and noticed their eyes were also wide open. That monster was looking very similar to the black hippo that Evan summoned during Monster Tide. They all thought at the same time, and suddenly understood why the panther took away Brutus' storage ring. Chapter 445. *T. When Kazal noticed the bloodlust coming out of Evan's body reduced greatly, he immediately charged towards him, wanting to end the fight before he came back to his senses. Crackle! But just as he charged towards him, blood lightning erupted from Evan's body like a tsunami, and covered hundreds of meters of area. Kazal didn't even get a chance to retreat before he was caught inside the storm of blood lightning. A painful scream escaped from Kazal's mouth as blood lightning struck him all over his body. The wounds that Evan inflicted earlier widened, and blood lightning went inside his body through open wounds, wreaking havoc inside his body. Evan looked at everything with his blood-red eyes and sighed inwardly. F***K its mother. I never thought I would lose my mind because of using shadow possession, Evan said in a hoarse voice, while trying his best not to act like a mindless beast again. He was still having a hard time controlling his bloodlust, but thanks to Hana's Pacify Mind skill, he was at least able to think properly once again. I just have 30 seconds left before the effect of shadow possession ends. Evan looked at the remaining time and felt his bloodlust increasing once again. I need to finish this fight in a single attack. Evan forcefully surpassed his bloodlust and wore his Blazabringer gauntlets. The gauntlets were A+ rank, so they adjusted themselves according to the shape of his claws. Just as he wore the gauntlets, both of his arms were engulfed in fire because of the passive skill of Blazabringer gauntlets. Inferno Aura passive skill. When the user is enraged or in a heightened emotional state, their gauntlets emit a blazing aura, enhancing their attacks and making them even more formidable. Because of being affected by Albello and Bloodlust skill, Evan's emotions were completely out of control. Although he regained some of his rationality, his emotions were still not stable. Because of his unstable emotions, the passive skill of the gauntlets was working at its full power, and his entire arm was covered in a blazing aura, releasing scorching heat. But Evan didn't stop there and used the second skill of his gauntlets, Basilisk's Wrath. Basilisk's Wrath. Upon activation, the Blazabringer gauntlets transform into basilisk-like claws, empowering the user's attacks with fiery breath. Each strike of gauntlets releases scorching flames that can pierce through even the toughest defenses. Skill duration, 3 minutes. This skill can be used twice a day. The size of Blazabringer gauntlets increased, and now his entire arms were covered by the ruby-red colored gauntlets that were releasing a terrifying aura. The silver-colored pendant Evan was wearing flashed, and he activated its skill Sprite Sacrifice. Sprite Sacrifice Dash. The wearer of the Sprite pendant can sacrifice 70% of his total mana and 50% of stamina to temporarily increase his strength, agility, and intelligence by 50% for 1 minute. Evan's stats increased by 50%, and a terrifying aura burst forth from his body. The blood lightning storm that was continuously attacking Kazal slowly disappeared, and his haggard figure appeared in front of Evan. His body was scorched black from many places because of lightning, and he was panting heavily. When Kazal looked at Evan, whose arms were covered in ruby-red Blazabringer gauntlets, and felt his terrifying aura, a look of disbelief appeared in his eyes. He couldn't understand how Evan's aura suddenly became so powerful. Evan didn't care about Kazal's shock and looked at the timer. Now he had only 25 seconds left before the effect of shadow possession ended. Crackle! Blood lightning covered his entire body, and his beastly eyes blazed with bloodlust as he looked at Kazal. When Kazal felt Evan's aura and looked into his eyes, he could also feel that it would be their last clash. After this clash, one of them will definitely die. When Kazal realized that he might die after this clash, for some reason instead of feeling nervous, his mind calmed down. A dark aura started to come out of his body, and the air around him trembled. The dagger he was holding started to glow, and black smoke started to come out of it. Crackle! Lightning and wind spun around Evan's feet and bang, bang. The ground beneath Kazal and Evan's feet shattered as both of them disappeared from the place they were standing. Kazal turned into a streak of black light that looked like it wanted to swallow everything. Meanwhile, Evan turned into a streak of blood-red lightning surrounded by fire that wanted to destroy everything. Both of them arrived in front of each other in an instant. Kazal's eye met with Evan's beastly eyes and boom! Shockwaves that were far more powerful than the combined attacks of all the wyverns spread in the surroundings. All the shadow undeads who were near the center of impact were blown away by the shockwaves, and a storm of lightning, fire and darkness started to spread outwards from the center of the expansion. The ground within more than 3 kilometers of the area crumbled and turned into dust, and a giant crater that was more than 500 meters in diameter appeared there. When the shock waves stopped and the dust settled down, Evan and Kazal appeared in front of all the shadow undeads. Kazal was lying on the ground, one of his legs was missing, and his body was scorched black. His entire body was riddled with injuries, and blood lighting was still wreaking havoc inside his body. His eyes were half closed, and his life force was slowly fading away. Evan was still standing on his feet, and his condition was looking better than Kazal's, but his life force was fading even faster than Kazal's, because there was a dagger plunged inside his neck. So, we are both going to die, huh? Kazal said in a hoarse voice as he looked at Evan with his half-closed eyes. Evan did not pay attention to Kazal, and lifted his claw-like hands that were shaking and grabbed the dagger that was plunged inside his neck. Poochie! Without an ounce of hesitation, he pulled out the dagger and a fountain of blood came out from his neck. When Evan pulled out the dagger, his life force started to disappear even faster. But before Kazal's muddled mind could understand what Evan was doing, he saw a purple aura appear around Evan's body, and whoosh! All the injuries that Evan suffered till now disappeared into thin air. COUGH**. Kazal was so startled that he coughed out blood, and his life force started to disappear even faster. Elijah, Evan said in a weak voice and looked towards Elijah who was floating above him. Elijah quickly came down from the sky, and without wasting any time she started to heal Kazal who was about to die. I can't let him die in this kind of state, Evan thought to himself as he looked at Kazal. Chapter 446. The duration of shadow possession ended, and Evan returned to his normal form. A black shadow came out from his body and turned into Albelu, who was still releasing a bloodthirsty aura. What are you doing? Kazal asked in a hoarse voice when Elijah used her healing skill on him. Evan looked at him but did not bother to reply, and just looked at his body which was slowly healing. Kazal's whole body was burnt because of fire and lightning. One of his legs was missing, and there were numerous wounds all over his body. Evan was afraid that he would not be able to turn him into a shadow undead, which is why he was healing him a bit before killing him. In 1 minute, when Kazal's burnt skin was restored to some extent and the wounds on his body closed, Evan nodded toward Elijah. Whoosh! A sword made of light element appeared in Elijah's hand, and she pierced Kazal's heart, ending his life. Although his body was still greatly damaged, Evan did not heal him too much because there was a very high chance that he would be able to fight once again. When Kazal's life force disappeared, Evan finally sighed in relief and slumped down on the ground. He looked at the sky with a blank look on his face, and could not help but shake his head. If not for Hana who brought me back to my senses, Evan muttered and lay down on the burnt ground. He continued to stare at the sky for a few minutes before standing up once again. I don't know why I lost control over my emotions after merging with Albelu, but this is not the time to think about all this, Evan thought to himself, and looked at his cores. Both of his cores were still sealed and were restricted to C+ rank. A acute plus or minus D plus or minus S inverted question mark vel.C inverted question mark M. I need to get out of here before anyone else comes here. Evan used his shadow storage skill and put away Kazal's body. He wanted to turn him into shadow undead, but his monarch core was restricted to C+ rank. He was afraid that if he tried to turn him into shadow undead, while his core was restricted to C+ rank, it would fail, which is why he decided to do it after leaving the dungeon. After putting away Kazal's body, Evan looked around him, but he was not sure where he should go to leave this dungeon. Just what kind of dungeon is this? Evan couldn't help but say out loud after looking around. I haven't seen any monster since the moment I came here, and how can anyone cover this entire floor with a formation? Evan used his shadow senses and told the wyverns to go in all directions of the dungeon. The 10 wyverns were killed by Kazal, so there were just 9 wyverns left. All 9 of them flew away and started to look for the exit portal of the dungeon. After ordering wyverns, Evan once again used shadow senses and contacted Eclipse. He contacted it earlier after coming into the dungeon. At that time he saw how Valerie and others were surrounded by people of Dark Guild. But since he was busy dealing with Kazal, he just told Eclipse to help them in an emergency and stopped looking at their situation. I hope they are fine, Evan muttered, and his vision connected with Eclipse. When Evan used shadow senses, Eclipse was standing at the top of a frozen tree using its stealth skill and was looking at Valerie and others from the distance. Evan was stunned for a moment when he saw the large area that was covered in ice. Looks like that brain-dead woman took care of everything. It was not hard for Evan to guess who froze all the area. After seeing Valerie and the others were fine, he once again told Eclipse to help them before he stopped using his shadow senses. After he stopped using shadow senses, he walked towards Ariel and jumped on its back. Elijah and Hana also jumped at Ariel's back and stood beside Evan. He summoned back his orcs, Astronax and a few other shadow undeads, before Ariel took into the blue sky. I just hope I would not have to face another S-rank hunter. Before leaving this damned dungeon, Evan thought inwardly, and Ariel flew away from there. Soon 15 hours passed by and Ariel was still flying in the sky. Just what kind of ***up dungeon is this? Evan couldn't help but curse when even after 15 hours he wasn't able to find the exit. He already summoned back 10 wyverns who were killed by Kazal, and they were also looking for the exit of the dungeon. But even though his wyverns were looking for the exit in all directions, he wasn't able to find it. Moreover, there is not even a single monster inside this dungeon. Evan didn't meet any monster during all this time. If it was a normal dungeon, I could have collected some cores while looking for the exit, Evan muttered as the body of a wolf-type monster turned into dust. Evan took out another body that he collected from the small world, and used energy devouring skill on it. He directed the energy of the body towards his monarch core, and increased its rank. Soon the body of the monster once again turned into dust, and his monarch core advanced a little. I used all the bodies that I collected from the small world, Evan said after looking at his empty storage rings. After absorbing all the bodies, he looked at the cores that he collected and started to absorb them. His monarch core already crossed the halfway mark of B rank, and it was not far away from reaching A rank. Absorbing cores was a lot faster than absorbing the bodies, so he absorbed all the cores in just a few minutes. After absorbing the cores, Evan received 1 skill, but he did not pay too much attention to it for the time being, because after absorbing the cores, he was now very close to A rank. Let's see if I can get enough cores to reach A rank, Evan muttered to himself, and took out Kazal's storage ring. Chapter 447. Evan took out 3 items from his shadow's storage. There was a dagger that was used by Kazal, there was an armlet bracelet, and the last one was a storage ring. Evan first picked up the dagger and looked at its details. Shadowstrick Dagger, A+ rank. The Shadowstrick Dagger is a masterpiece, born of the darkest arts and shrouded in legend. The blade of the dagger is made of the bone of an A+ rank shadow serpent. That is considered a rare shadow-type monster. While holding the dagger, the user can use skills Life Theft and Shadow Embrace. Life Theft. Upon striking an opponent, the dagger has the power to steal a portion of the target's life force and store it inside it. The wielder of the dagger can use the stolen life force to heal himself. Shadow Embrace passive skill. The dagger has an innate ability to increase the power of all shadow-type skills. While wielding the dagger, the user's shadow-type skill receives a boost of 20% in their base power. Along with boosting the power of shadow-type skills, the dagger also protects the user from harmful curses. So he used life theft skill at that time to heal himself. Evan muttered to himself after seeing the details of the dagger. The dagger was quite good, and both of its skills were also top-notch. But Evan was not interested in using a dagger, so he didn't show much reaction after seeing its details. If I successfully turn that guy into a shadow undead, I will give it back to him, Evan thought to himself, and put away the dagger. After putting away the dagger, he picked up the armlet bracelet. The bracelet was light blue in color, and there was a green-colored gem in its center. When he looked carefully at the gem, Evan saw a swirling wind vortex inside the green gem. Wind Guarding Armlet S rank. A defensive elemental armlet infused with the essence of wind. This armlet automatically forms a protective counter-wind barrier around the wearer in case of sudden attack or imminent danger. The counter-wind barrier can absorb a large amount of damage targeted towards the user. The wearer of the Wind Guardian armlet can release all the absorbed damage in one go at their will. All the absorbed damage released by the counter-wind barrier will be enhanced by the essence of wind, increasing its power by 20%. The counter-wind barrier will go on a cooldown of 10 hours once the user releases all the absorbed damage. TSK. This bastard was carrying such a good thing with him, Evan said, and wore the Wind Guarding armlet. If Albelu did not receive the Crimson Veil skill after evolving into a Blood Lightning Wolf, it would have been very difficult to hurt him, especially when both of my cores are sealed at C+ rank. The thing that made Evan most satisfied was the fact that the counter-wind barrier could absorb all the damage directed towards him, and release that damage towards his enemies. After wearing the armlet bracelet, Evan finally picked up the storage ring, hoping to get enough cores that will allow his Monarch core to reach A rank. If my Monarch core reach A rank, I might be able to break free from the effect of this absolute sealing formation. Evan's current problem was his sealed cores. He still did not know where he was, and there was a very high chance that more people of the Dark Guild would come looking for him. I need to do something about my cores, or if I were to meet another S-rank hunter in my current condition, it would be troublesome, Evan muttered as he looked inside the storage ring. Just like always, the first thing he saw were useless clothes, food and some other things. After throwing away those things, he finally saw some useful things. There were many potions in Kazal's storage ring, and surprisingly he found 5 full mana recovery potions among them. Other than full mana recovery potion, he found 2 more potions that he saw in the merit shop, but wasn't able to purchase them because of low points. Energy Vial. This potion provides a burst of energy and stamina to the user, temporarily eliminating fatigue and enhancing physical and mental performance. There were 2 energy vials. Truth Serum. Consuming this potion compels the person to speak only the truth, making it a useful tool for interrogation or extracting valuable information. There was 1 Truth Serum among the potions. There were normal potions as well, like healing potions, strength-enhancing potions and many more. But Evan already had them, so he just threw them inside his shadow storage. I wonder from where this guy got the potions that were available in the merit shop, Evan muttered after putting away the potions. Now that I remember, Naflium's city monster tide was caused by the Dark Guild. Could it be that this guy was behind the monster tide, since he had potions that were available in the merit shop? Evan said while rubbing his chin. I will ask him after turning him into a shadow undead. Evan once again looked inside the storage ring, and his eyes immediately lit up. Cores, he said in an excited voice, and his heart started to beat faster. When he saw a small pile of cores, he counted all of them and found 33 cores there. The number of cores were less than he expected, but there were 5 A+ and 10 A rank cores among them. The remaining 18 cores were all B+ rank. Although the numbers are very low, all of the cores are high-ranking ones. If I absorb all of them, I should be able to reach A rank, Evan thought, and immediately took out a B+ rank core to absorb it. He put the core inside his mouth, and it turned into energy that rushed towards his Monarch core. While his Monarch core was absorbing the energy, he looked inside the storage ring again. But there was nothing useful inside the storage ring. Just when Evan was about to take out another core to absorb, he suddenly saw a small object inside the ring. For some reason, he started to feel strange the moment he saw that small object. What is this? Evan did not understand why he started to feel strange after seeing the small object. He used his mental force and instead of core, took out that small object out of the storage ring. Chapter 448. Looks like the moment you used your glacial nova orb, he ran away from here, Khaled said to Valerie, while looking at all the people who were frozen inside the ice. After Eclipse disappeared, Valerie and others decided to leave from there as well. But before leaving, Valerie decided to take away the storage rings of Ryan and other A-rank hunters. While taking away their storage ring, Valerie noticed that Noah was not among the frozen people. Sophie and others looked around the area to search for him, but they didn't find him anywhere. That bastard was acting so arrogantly earlier. But in the end, he just ran away from here like a coward, Ian, who was Noah's teammate, said in a voice full of disdain. We should also leave from here. I tried to contact my father earlier, but for some reason, communication crystal and mobile phones are not working here, Valerie said in a serious voice because they were still not sure about their current location. Others were also concerned about their current location, so they also nodded their heads. So, which direction should we go? Mark asked while scratching the back of his head. Let's just choose a random direction. We just need to get out of this area so we can contact someone, Sophie said. Once we leave this area we should be able to use a mobile phone once again, and it won't be hard to confirm a location at that time. No one objected to Sophie's suggestion because she was not wrong. All of them knew that it was not a good choice to stay there, since more people from the Dark Guild could come there anytime. Moreover, even though it was just a guess, it was not hard to confirm that the people of the Dark Guild prepared something in that area that was preventing them from using their communication crystals and mobile phones. If they want to contact Sebastian and others, they just have to leave that area. By the way, don't you think the monster that killed that metal guy earlier was similar to the monster that Evan summons? Suddenly David said as all of them started moving in the northeast direction. Summon monster. Valerie and other members of Astarte Academy were all confused when they heard David and looked at him with a questioning look. Seeing how Valerie, Amy, Gloria and Jackson were looking at him in confusion, David was baffled. Don't tell me you don't know Evan can summon a powerful monster to fight for him, Sophie asked while looking at Valerie and others weirdly. She was confused because Valerie, Amy, Gloria and Jackson were Evan's teammates, so in her eyes, it was common sense that they would be aware of their teammates' skills. Valerie's mouth couldn't help but twitch when she saw how Sophie was looking at them. Thinking about how Evan just slept all the time after coming to Central City instead of practicing with them, she wanted to curse him to no end. Seeing the awkward expressions of Amy and others, it was not hard for Sophie to guess that Evan did not tell them about it. So to dispel the awkward atmosphere, she told them about what happened during the monster tide of Naflium City. Amy and others were surprised that Evan went into the B-rank zone, even though he was just a D+ rank hunter at that time. It's working now after around 1 hour, David said out loud, attracting everyone's attention. When they looked at him they saw his mobile phone was now working fine. David quickly checked their location, and when he saw where they were, his eyes opened wide. Valerie and others also checked their locations, and they were also shocked to find out that they were 300,000 kilometers away from the central city. Just what kind of formation was that? How can it teleport us to such a faraway place? Mark said in a voice full of disbelief while looking at their location. Just when they were still shocked after confirming their location, Caleb's face turned pale, and he looked at the map with a horror-filled look. I think we are in deep trouble, Caleb said in a trembling voice. Other people were confused when they heard Caleb's trembling voice, but when they heard what he said next, their faces also turned pale. This area is the territory of S-rank Abyssal Spider. Evan took out a small round object from Kazal's storage ring. That was looking like a coin. The object was 3 centimeters in diameter, and was crimson red in color. An image of a blurry human with 2 horns was engraved on it. What is this? Evan raised an eyebrow when he saw the coin-shaped object and looked at it carefully. But even after looking at it for some time, Evan wasn't able to find anything strange about the coin. He even used his spiritual senses to scan the coin, but there was nothing wrong with it. There was no aura around the coin, and it was looking like a normal object. Although it is looking like a normal coin, for some reason it is giving me a strange feeling, Evan muttered to himself while looking at the coin in confusion. Demon. Huh. Evan looked at Elijah, who was sitting beside him, and was looking at the coin in his hand. What demon, Elijah? Evan asked while looking around to see if there was any monster near them. But to his surprise, Elijah pointed at the blurry image of the human that was engraved on the coin and said, "It is a demon." Evan looked at the image once again, and suddenly remembered how Elijah told him she was sent inside the dungeon to collect information about demons. Chap-254. Do you know what this coin is? Evan asked Elijah in the hope that she would know the use of the coin. No, but his mouth could not help but twitch when he heard her flat reply. Just when he was about to ask a few more questions, his expression changed, and he immediately used shadow senses to connect with one of his wyverns. Just as he connected with the wyvern and saw what was in front of it, a sigh of relief escaped from his mouth. So they finally found it, Evan said, and Ariel changed its flying direction. One of his wyverns just found the exit portal of the dungeon. Chapter 449. As Ariel flew towards the exit portal of the dungeon, Evan put away the coin that he had taken out earlier. After putting away the coin, he took out one core after another from Kazal's storage ring, and started to absorb them using his monarch core. The rank of his monarch core continued to increase, and it started to move towards A rank. When he absorbed his 8th core, suddenly a notification flashed before his eyes. You have received the skill Power Aura. Power Aura. When activated, the user will emit a Power Aura. The Power Aura increases the user's strength by 10%. While the Power Aura is activated, the agility of the user will reduce by 10%. 10% increase in strength, Evan said while taking a deep breath. If I use this skill along with my other skills and Blazabringer gauntlets. Evan felt excited just thinking about it. He didn't care too much about the 10% decrease in agility. He has many skills like temporal velocity, flicker steps, and wind manipulation that increase his agility, so he was not concerned about it. The exit portal was quite far away, so while looking at the details of Power Aura, he decided to look at the details of the skill that he received earlier as well. Regeneration. Using regeneration, the user can rapidly regenerate. The power of regeneration depends on the user's rank. If the rank of the user is high enough, they can even regenerate their lost limbs. The skill consumes a large amount of mana and stamina. I must have gotten this skill by absorbing the core of the black ogre that Albelu killed in the small world. Evan muttered in a low voice after reading the details of skill. Evan didn't absorb the black ogre's body because he wanted to turn it into a shadow undead, but he did absorb its core. I didn't think I would get the second skill of Black Ogre as well. Evan already had the Devour skill of Black Ogre that he merged with other skills, and turned into Energy Devouring skill that is currently one of his most important skills. Regeneration and Ember Vitality are both healing type skills, but I can't merge them into one. Ember Vitality. Using this skill you can draw energy from fire or heat sources, and use this energy to heal and recover from injuries. I told about this skill in Chat 405. Evan tried to merge his regeneration and Ember Vitality skills, but there was no reaction from his Monarch core. Well, maybe I need one more skill that is similar to regeneration and Ember Vitality, to merge them into one skill. Just like the Energy Devouring skill, Evan said, and stopped trying to merge his skills. His Energy Devouring skill was born after merging 3 skills into one, so he guessed that he might need one more regeneration type skill to merge them into one. After looking at regeneration and Ember Vitality one last time, he once again returned back to absorbing the cores. His Monarch core was like a black hole that continued to absorb all the energy of the cores. One by one, the number of cores in Kazal's storage ring started to reduce. Soon there were just 2 cores left in Kazal's storage ring. After getting the Power Aura, Evan didn't receive any skill, but he didn't care about that, because currently his mind was fully focused on the rank of his core. Just a little bit more, Evan took out an A+ rank and put it inside his mouth. The core turned into energy and was slowly absorbed by his Monarch core. After absorbing the core, Evan could feel he was just a little bit away from reaching A rank. He took a deep breath and took out the last A+ rank core. I hope it will be enough, Evan muttered to himself and swallowed the core. Just like last time, the core turned into energy, and the energy went towards his monarch core. Almost there. Just a bit more. Evan looked at everything with hopeful eyes as his monarch core continued to absorb the energy of the last A+ rank core. After a few minutes, his monarch core absorbed all the energy. Just as his core absorbed all the energy, a notification flashed before his eyes. You have received a skill mid-level poison resistance. Evan didn't even realize that he had just received a new skill, as his mind was completely focused on his monarch core. After a few seconds, he finally stopped looking at his core and opened his mouth. Fu*K. If his monarch core needed 100 units of energy to advance, then currently it was at 99.98 units. It was just a small step away from reaching A rank, but Evan was already out of calls. What should I do? Evan muttered and looked inside his shadow storage. Inside his shadow storage, there were still the bodies of the Goblin King, the Black Ogre and Kazal, but he was not willing to use them because he wanted to turn them into shadow undead before absorbing them. He could turn the Goblin King into a shadow undead, since it was just a D+ rank monster, and absorb its body. But he was sure that even after absorbing the Goblin King's D+ rank body, he would still not reach A rank, because the energy provided by D+ rank body is very low. Looks like I cannot do anything about it for the time being. Evan sighed out loud, but soon his eyes flashed with a chilling light, and a cold smile appeared on his face. But it doesn't matter, because I am sure I will be able to reach A rank just after leaving this damned dungeon. Quote. A few minutes later, Ariel reached the place where the exit portal was located. Evan jumped down from Ariel's back and used shadow wings to safely land right in front of the portal. Let's see if there is anyone who is waiting for me outside, Evan said in a low voice, and used his spiritual senses to look at the other end of the portal. Chapter 450. I think Lord Kazal is playing with that poor fellow, Danny, an A-rank hunter said while yawning. It's been about 17 hours since he has been inside. Normally, Lord Kazal doesn't like to play with low-level hunters, but it seems this time it's different. Another A-ranker, Omers said while taking a big bite of meat steak. A acute plus or minus D plus or minus S inverted question mark vel dot C inverted question mark M. Both Danny and Omers were sitting inside a room that was looking like a control room exclamation point. The room had many small screens, and all of them were showing different kinds of views of the wilderness. Speaking of Lord Kazal, didn't he send Ryan and the others to capture some people? Danny suddenly furrowed his brows and said, even though the place was quite far away from here, they should have come back by now. But there's still no news of them. Those bastards must be playing around, Omers said in an angry tone. They're not coming back because they don't want to stand guard here. Danny didn't say anything about what Omers just said and sighed out loud. This abyssal spider is truly a pain in the A**s. I can't understand how can it produce so many spiders. BEEP*, BEEP*. Suddenly a beeping sound rang out in the room, and the expressions of Danny and Omers changed. What the *K is wrong with these spiders today? Omers cursed out loud while looking at one of the screens. On the screen, a large army of spiders could be seen moving. This is today's third wave exclamation point. Just where are all these spiders going? Danny said, looking at the army of spiders, with a look of disbelief on his face. Rumble. Suddenly the control room they were sitting in started to shake. An earthquake, Omers said in a questioning tone and stood up. I guess so. Danny nodded his head, trying to keep his balance. After a few seconds, the room stopped shaking and everything returned to normal. Looks like whoosh. Omers was about to sit down to finish his meat steak when suddenly the mana in the surroundings started to rush towards a certain direction. What is happening now? Danny asks, feeling how the surrounding mana was moving towards a certain direction. Fu*K suddenly Omers cursed out in a fear-filled voice. Danny was startled when he heard Omers' loud voice and wanted to ask what happened. But when he looked at where Omers was looking, his face also froze because of fear. Why are all those spiders coming towards our base? Danny said in a trembling voice, looking at the army of spiders that suddenly changed their moving direction and was now coming towards their base. Our base is surrounded by stealth and illusion formation. There is no way those damn spiders can find us, Omers said while trying to keep his composure. But the more they looked at the moving spiders, the more Danny and Omers realized the spiders were really coming towards them. Suddenly Danny looked at the mana that was rushing towards a certain direction, and his eyes widened. The mana is rushing towards the direction of the dungeon portal, Danny said in a low voice and looked at Omers. Without saying anything, both of them quickly left the control room and went out. As they ran towards the portal of the dungeon, they met with many low-ranking hunters who were still confused because of the sudden earthquake and the odd behavior of mana. Soon both Danny and Omers left the building and came out. But just as they came out, their bodies stiffened and their eyes opened wide. "What the F*** is this thing?" Omers said while looking at the sky. The sky was covered by a large mana vortex that was 3 kilometers in diameter. The density of mana inside the vortex was so high that Danny and Omers felt suffocated just by looking at it. The center of the vortex was just above the building where the portal of the dungeon was located, and they could feel how all the mana was being poured inside the building. Rumble. The ground once again shook and a terrifying pressure came out of the building. Both Danny and Omers felt a chill running down their spines when they felt the terrifying aura that was coming out from the building. They looked at each other and saw disbelief in each other's eyes. "This aura is even more terrifying than Lord Kazal's aura," Omers said in a shaky voice, and looked back at the building. The building was shaking violently, and was looking like it would collapse at any moment, because of the terrifying pressure. "That building is made of special materials to stop the monsters in case of a dungeon outbreak, but it is shaking just because of the pressure," Danny muttered in a fear-filled voice, and for some reason his instincts were telling him to run away. "Did something happen to Lord Kazal?" Omers said while gulping down his saliva. The mana vortex above them continued to gather mana from the surroundings, and with each passing second, the pressure that was coming out from the building was increasing. Rumble. Finally, the building where the portal was located could not handle the pressure and collapsed. Whoosh. Just as the building started to collapse, a wind tornado rose from its center, and all the debris and boulders falling from the building were blown away. Danny and Omers took a step back and fell to the ground. When the tornado rose from the center of the building, the pressure that was coming out from the building suddenly intensified, and they felt like they were being watched by a terrifying monster. At this point, all their instincts were warning them to run away. Danny and Omers could feel the aura of death covering their bodies. They mustered all of their courage to shake off the fear they were feeling, and stood up with trembling legs. Even though they did not know what was happening, both of them already decided to leave the base and run away from there. But just as they stood up, they suddenly noticed 2 black eyes that were glowing brightly, looking at them from the dust cloud that rose after the fall of the building. As their eyes met with glowing black eyes, Danny and Omers felt that they had seen something they were not supposed to see. A terrifying pressure descended on their minds, and the next second, bang, bang, the heads of Danny and Omers exploded like watermelons, and their lifeless bodies dropped to the ground. This is the end of this video. Thank you guys for listening. Hope you enjoyed and wish you wonderful rest of the day. The Silent Ruptors out.